Chapter 16:18. The evil spirit puppet's aura had been completely suppressed by Tianyan a long time ago, so it basically couldn't release any aura. However, the Fecta Domain Lord was still able to sense it. It looked like the Fecta Domain Lord was quite a perceptive person. Even the heavenly goddess Luck was able to sense it, so the Fecta Domain Lord was able to sense it a little more easily. Even though it was only a little, he was still able to sense it. He had released it several times in the past, but neither the heavenly goddess Luck nor the Domain Lord Yuelong were able to sense it. It was evident that the Fecta Domain Lord was not an ordinary person. Don't worry about that. At the very least, I can control it, and that's enough. Tianyan didn't expose the evil spirit puppet. They had only just met, so there was no way he was going to expose everything. At the same time, he was constantly inspecting the evil spirit's pearl. The Fecta Domain Lord was sealing the body of the evil spirits, so it was the second most difficult to seal. The first was naturally the head. The head had always been the most difficult to seal, and it required a lot more energy to do so. He couldn't sense what it was just from its aura, so he could only see through the surface of the pearl with his naked eye. The Fecta Domain Lord was able to immediately sense that it was the head. Tianyan guessed that he was able to sense it from the density of the evil energy. The denser the evil energy, the higher the level of the body. As for the Fecta Domain Lord's sealing technique, it was completely different from the other Domain Lords, who used their own bodies to seal the pearl. The Fecta Domain Lord was completely relying on machines to seal the pearl, and he was also trying to figure out how to control and use this evil spirit's pearl. It had to be said that there was a huge difference between people. The other Domain Lords were constantly thinking about how to seal the pearl for a longer period of time, or they were considering who would be the next Domain Lord. However, the Fecta Domain Lord and the others didn't even need to use their own bodies. All they did was use these machines to seal the pearl, then try to draw out the evil energy within to see how to use it. It seemed to be quite difficult, so they hadn't been able to successfully use it, but at the very least, it seemed to be quite effective. Take it out for me to see. Ignoring him, the Fecta Domain Master walked toward Tianyan and stared at him with sharp eyes. If you don't show me, I won't form an alliance with you. The Fecta Protectorate Lord's crazed state gave Tianyan a fright. This was the first time he had seen such a strong thirst for knowledge. Everyone has their own secrets. I can't let you see them unless you form an alliance with me first. Tianyan also threatened him with an alliance. Yes, we can form an alliance now. Show me. The Fecta Domain Ruler's quick reply stunned Tianyan. Wasn't it too exaggerated to decide on an alliance so quickly? Just because he was slightly interested in something, he immediately chose to form an alliance. He didn't even consider the consequences. The heavenly goddess Luck couldn't take this any longer, and she hurriedly held the Fecta Domain Ruler back. Fecta Domain Ruler, what are you doing? This is an alliance, and it's not something that can be casually formed. You have to assess the situation first. It was far too rash to form an alliance without even knowing what was going on. That's true, we can't be too rash. After you show me if you think there's some research value in it, we can form an alliance right away. How about that? The Fecta Domain Ruler suggested. The heavenly goddess Luck almost fainted upon hearing this. There was a difference between the two options, but it didn't just depend on whether Tianyan's method was good or not. If his method was good, then they would form an alliance. This alliance was far too rash. If they were to form an alliance with a scammer, then they would be screwed. Most importantly, the Fecta Domain had never interfered much with the outside world, so it was clearly not very appropriate for them to form an alliance. Tianyan almost spat out a mouthful of saliva. This Fecta Domain Ruler sure was rash. However, from the look in his eyes, he could tell that this wasn't the case at all. He then thought about it for a moment before deciding to bring out the sinister spirit puppet. After releasing the sinister spirit puppet, a sinister energy immediately began to spread throughout the room. This gave the heavenly goddess Luck a fright, and she immediately prepared for battle, only to be stopped by the Fecta Domain Ruler. Elder Luck, stop right now. The Fecta Domain Ruler signaled for Elder Luck to stop before inspecting the sinister spirit puppet. What kind of ability is this? To think that it could completely control the sinister spirit tribe, and even seal the evil spirit's pearl within it. How bold of you. This is a puppet ability, Etianyan explained. A puppet? The Fecta domain ruler inspected the sinister spirit puppet. This puppet ability is way too powerful. I've never seen anything so realistic. I can't detect any abnormalities at all. Normal puppet techniques will always be exposed no matter how hard they try to conceal themselves. At most, they'll only be able to conceal themselves very well. However, none of them are as flawless as you are. Etianyan's sinister spirit puppet was naturally unable to detect any flaws. After all, it was constructed from the flesh and blood of sinister spirit puppets, so how could it detect any flaws? This is a mystic technique. This was the only explanation Etianyan could provide. If you exchange this mystic technique with me, I'll form an alliance with you immediately. At the same time, many areas of the Fecta divine realm will be open to you. The Fecta domain ruler was going crazy again. He wasn't serious at all. No, this cannot be leaked. Etianyan smiled. Speaking of which, are you satisfied with this, Fecta domain ruler? You said before that if you were satisfied, you'd form an alliance. You didn't say that this mystic technique was necessary. Etianyan's puppetry technique definitely couldn't be leaked. In fact, it couldn't be leaked at all. I can't leak it. Alright, as long as you give this puppet to me for a while. I'll return it to you after I'm done researching it. Then, I'll form an alliance with you. What do you think? The Fecta domain ruler agreed readily. Etianyan was stunned by the Fecta domain ruler's quick reply. He hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. If he could form an alliance with the sinister spirit puppet after some research, then he might as well take it and study it. He wasn't afraid that the sinister spirit puppet would be dismembered. It was basically indestructible, and he could just gather it back together. Fecta domain ruler. The heavenly god of luck was about to go crazy. She didn't think that her domain ruler would agree so quickly. How about it? Do you agree? The Fecta domain ruler chuckled. No problem, but I have a condition for handing it over to you. It can't be too long. Otherwise, if it takes tens of thousands of years, wouldn't I be at a disadvantage? Also, you can't touch it too much. This is the pearl of evil spirits, and it could easily cause problems if you're not careful. Etianyan stated his conditions first so that he wouldn't have to research it for tens of thousands of years before agreeing to this. Chapter 16:19. Ahem, then let's set a time. We can't do anything rash. Etianyan shook his head. The Fecta domain lord sure was crazy. He didn't know if he was actually crazy or just pretending to be crazy. He seemed to be very casual about everything, as though nothing mattered to him. He could even talk about forming an alliance without any hesitation. Then let's do it for a few years. We'll have to research for at least a few decades, right? But don't worry, the flow of time here is quite slow, so we'll take care of the flow of time here. If you stay outside, it'll only be a few months at most. It'll be over soon. The Fecta domain lord said. If there's nothing else, you can leave now and wait for my news. In the meantime, you can wander around as you please, as long as it's not a restricted area. After that, he let Etianyan go out so that he won't disturb his research. Etianyan shrugged before turning to leave. In any case, the Fecta domain lord had already said that, so he would just have to wait for some time. He was quite happy to see the Fecta domain lord agree so readily. After he left, the heavenly goddess Luck hurriedly said, Fecta domain lord, what's going on? Aren't you being too hasty? We haven't even figured out who the other party is, and you're already agreeing to an alliance? The heavenly goddess Luck was really panicking. She had been trying to persuade the Fecta domain lord from the very beginning, but the Fecta domain lord completely ignored her. A faint smile appeared on the Fecta domain lord's face. As long as it's not the evil spirit tribe, isn't that enough? The heavenly goddess Luck faltered slightly upon hearing this. But if the other party is too weak, then we'll have to constantly be on the move. That would expose our Fecta domain. How much longer do you think our Fecta domain can hide? The Fecta domain lord smiled faintly and said, There's not much time left. Even if the evil god is sealed, it's impossible for the evil spirit race to have no experts. Think about it. How did he manage to come in through such a secluded place? This was an accident. The heavenly goddess Luck was perplexed. No, it's the divine spirit race, the Fecta domain master said with a smile. Only the divine spirit race knows that he came from your temple. It's undeniable that some of them came in by accident, and they happen to be the guardians of the evil spirit's heads. Isn't it a good way to prove that they're from the divine spirit clan? An emissary of the god spirit race or a guardian. Isn't that enough to form an alliance with us? Even though the divine spirit race has declined, they are still our pioneers and our great leaders. When the other party is in danger, why shouldn't we form an alliance? The Fecta region ruler's explanation stunned the heavenly goddess of luck. It seemed that the Fecta domain lord wasn't in a hurry to study the ghoul puppet, but that he had discovered many things about it. Fecta domain lord, I'm very sorry. I thought you only chose to ally with us because of this puppet. This is also why I want to form an alliance. Such a good puppet, how can I not study it properly? She followed the heavenly goddess of luck out of the room with an enraged expression. She was about to be driven insane by the Fecta region ruler. In the end, she was completely engrossed in her research and didn't pay any attention to anything else. How could she be in a good mood? When she came out of the room, she discovered that Etienne was surveying his surroundings, clearly quite interested in the hourglasses around him. So he's the representative of the divine spirit race? I wonder what he's capable of. I thought he really was a guardian, but it turns out he's just a puppet. That's a little strange. The heavenly goddess of luck's eyes darted around. I'll test him first. The Fecta region ruler doesn't want to test him, but I want to. The heavenly goddess of luck made her way over to Etienne with a smile. Speaking of which, I still don't know what your Dao title is. Heavenly Venerate Heavenly Cloud, you can just call me that. Etienne turned to look at her, and he couldn't help but feel like something bad was about to happen at the sight of the heavenly goddess of luck's smile. Heavenly Venerate Heavenly Cloud, what kind of power are you currently in? The heavenly goddess of luck asked with a sweet smile. It had to be said that she was quite approachable, especially her beautiful face, which gave people a good impression of her. There was also a special aura emanating from her body that enshrouded her entire body. Etienne used his detection eye to discover that she had a natural halo of luck, and she was constantly releasing her power of luck. Anyone who approached her would most likely receive good luck. The power I'm currently in is the god realm of the three realms. Etienne replied in a very straightforward manner. The god realm of the three realms? The heavenly goddess of luck faltered upon hearing this. The god realm that has recently been blessed by the heavens, and it's a very weak one at that. It seems that my force is quite famous. Etienne said with a smile, it's not a secret. It's quite renowned, but I heard that its overall power is quite lackluster. The heavenly goddess of luck looked at him with a peculiar expression. If it weren't for the fact that the heavens blessed them with a special barrier, they would have been razed to the ground a long time ago. Every time the topic of the god realm of the three realms was brought up, everyone would feel like the god realm of the three realms was simply too lucky. It was as if the heavens were blind to take care of such a weak god realm. Even the god realm of the three realms didn't receive this kind of treatment. If they didn't have a powerful backer, they would have been immediately conquered. The god realm of the three realms didn't have any powerful backers, but they had a powerful backer like the heavens. Haha, that's true. Etienne smiled. He was naturally aware of this. However, even if there really was no protective barrier, it would be impossible for other powers to conquer the god realm of the three realms. He was definitely going to make those invading powers feel like they were in an extreme nightmare. If Etienne couldn't defeat them, he could choose to run. When he made a breakthrough in his cultivation base, he would make them realize what a huge mistake they had made. Aside from that, what other advantages does the god realm of the three realms have? The heavenly god of luck was listening to Etienne's explanation. The divine spirit race didn't ask Etienne directly. Advantages? I have a bunch of very powerful friends. Is that an advantage? Etienne smiled. A lot of powerful friends? The heavenly goddess of luck wore a peculiar expression. What kind of powerful friends did they have? Aside from that, there's still me. Is that enough? Etienne smiled. This The heavenly goddess of luck felt like Enlin was far too shameless. A heavenly venerate was nothing to a 4th grade god realm cultivator. Any random cultivator would be able to surpass him. Chapter 1620. The heavenly goddess of luck was a little displeased with Tianyin. She felt that as a guardian, he shouldn't be so pompous. He should be more prudent instead of being so arrogant. If the 3 realms mythical realm didn't have a protective barrier, it would have been breached a long time ago. How could a mere heavenly venerate defend it? As such, as a very responsible heavenly goddess of luck, she felt that she had to teach Tianyin a lesson. She couldn't allow him to continue being so pompous. The evil spirit's pearl was a very important item, and she couldn't afford to be careless. As such, she had to be prudent at all times. Tianyin didn't know what she was thinking, and he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to her either. He continued to walk around to see what was going on. He couldn't wait here forever, so he decided to take a stroll around and explore the wonders of the Fecta sacred realm. Heavenly goddess of luck, if there's nothing else, I'll just take a stroll around. Tianyin turned and walked away, ignoring the heavenly goddess of luck. Wait a moment. How about this? I'll take you around the Fecta sacred realm. I'll introduce you to the powerful aspects of the Fecta sacred realm. The heavenly goddess of luck immediately thought of something. That's a good idea. Thank you, heavenly goddess of luck. Tianyin smiled. Then the heavenly goddess of luck led Tianyin outside. She didn't take Tianyin to the main palace. Instead, she took him to some secluded areas. This area is the heavenly fate divine pond. There are many treasures under the water. The heavenly goddess of luck led him to the bridge and slowly walked over. Tianyin looked down into the heavenly fate divine pond. There were indeed many treasures at the bottom of the pond. There were at least heavenly Dao level treasures, and there were even heavenly venerate level treasures. All of these treasures had fallen into the water, but no one had salvaged them, which was quite perplexing. There are so many treasures, but no one is planning to salvage them? Tianyin was perplexed. These treasures are actually defective or damaged. If we throw them into the heavenly mysterious divine pond, they will slowly recover. A faint smile appeared on the heavenly goddess Luck's face. Many of them have been abandoned here, and some of them have been forgotten to be taken away. Normally, we won't take the initiative to clean them up. That's incredible. It's even capable of repairing treasures. Tianyin's eyes lit up. In that case, he didn't even have to repair it himself. All he had to do was to soak it in a pool for a period of time, and it would be able to repair it easily. It's that amazing, and there's something even more amazing. The heavenly god of luck continued onward with him as a faint smile appeared on her face. Immediately afterward, a burst of special energy emanated from her body, which enshrouded Tianyin. Tianyin was startled. He could clearly see a special energy enveloping him. It was naturally not visible to the naked eye, but was detected by the appraisal eye. This was the aura of misfortune. To put it bluntly, one's luck value would decrease upon coming into contact with this aura, thereby making them extremely unlucky. He didn't think that the heavenly god of luck would have such an ability. It looked like anything was possible in this world. No wonder she was referred to as the heavenly god of luck. She really could control luck and unleash misfortune. Is she trying to see me make a fool of myself? Tianyin rolled his eyes, but his expression remained unchanged as he followed behind her. It was impossible to make him become unlucky with such a measly amount of misfortune. He had only saved so many people and completed so many missions. His luck value was definitely very high, and unless it was an extremely powerful amount of misfortune, it wouldn't affect him in the slightest. This reminded him of the heavenly venerates who had been smashed by bricks or tripped over by the heavenly god of luck. This energy was extremely formless, and it was impossible to detect, so there was no way to defend against it. However, it didn't mean much to him. Tianyin casually allowed it to envelop him. No matter how this amount of misfortune affected him, it didn't mean anything to him. It couldn't seep into his body at all, let alone make a fool of himself. Hurry up and fall into the water, hurry up! The heavenly god of luck screamed in her heart, hoping that Tianyin would fall into the water and become a drenched chicken. However, no matter how hard she tried, it didn't work. She was quite confused. What's going on? Why is there no effect at all? For the first time, she was wondering if she had made a mistake. Was it because her amount of misfortune wasn't high enough? She immediately increased the degree of misfortune several times, but the degree of misfortune still couldn't penetrate Etienne's body. It was still blocked. After a short while, the heavenly god of luck still didn't see Etienne fall into the water, and he continued to walk behind her without any signs of tripping. It still doesn't work? That's impossible. Even a heavenly god can be affected, unless his luck defies the natural order. The heavenly god of luck was astonished. In the past, she had tried it every single time, and it rarely failed. However, it didn't work now. One had to realize that she had already significantly enhanced her luck, but it still didn't work. This was extremely shocking to her. She felt like it had no effect. Etienne, who was following behind her, had a large handful of bad luck divine pills in his hands. This was something from a long time ago. It was a godly pill that could greatly reduce a person's luck and make them extremely unlucky. He didn't know if they would work on the heavenly god of luck, but he still had to give it a try. Seeing as she wanted to see him make a fool of himself, he was going to see the heavenly god of luck make a fool of herself. Immediately afterward, he flicked a few bad luck divine pills, all of which easily seeped into her body, but they didn't have any effect even after a short while. As expected of the heavenly god of luck, her luck is way too domineering. I've used so many bad luck divine pills, and it only decreased her luck by a tiny bit. Etienne's eyes flashed. Screw it. He then exchanged for several dozen bad luck divine pills before flicking them all into the heavenly god of luck's body. In the end, her luck was instantly reduced to 0, and it even went into the negatives. Only after expending so many bad luck divine pills was she able to achieve such an effect, which was a clear indication of just how insane her luck was. Ding! Bad luck divine pills activated. Just as the heavenly god of luck was wondering why her luck was ineffective, her foot slipped, and she fell to the side before sinking to the bottom of the lake with a plop. However, that wasn't the end of it. The weapons around her quickly converged before crashing into her body. However, Etienne couldn't help but burst into laughter upon seeing this. He didn't feel the slightest hint of pity toward her. She wanted to toy with him? Let's see if he could beat her. Even the heavenly god of luck was shocked by this, and she quickly rushed out of the water before hurling all of the weapons toward her. At the same time, she activated her luck in a frenzy, and the bad luck divine pills were quickly nullified. Chapter 16:21. Etienne had thought that the heavenly god of luck would last for a while, but it had ended in just a short while. He had to admit that his physique was really good, and his luck was absolutely insane. He had seen amazing cultivation physiques, but he had never seen such a heaven-defying luck physique. The effects were even more astonishing. If he didn't have enough talent, he could make up for it with luck. Along the way, he had all sorts of fortuitous encounters and all sorts of spirit herbs. How could he be afraid that his cultivation would not increase? The heavenly luck goddess was one such example. She was so young, yet she was already so powerful. Of course, her innate talent wasn't low either, and that was the most terrifying thing about her. With both of them stacked on top of each other, it was truly shocking. He was struck by the urge to poach heavenly luck. If the heavenly goddess of luck were to join his force, then his power would be significantly boosted. After all, if he brought a group of cultivators out to hunt for treasures, he would be able to find many treasures and encounter many fortuitous encounters. However, this was just a thought. How could the fected divine realm release him? Heavenly luck goddess, what's wrong? Etienne repressed the urge to laugh as he looked at the disheveled heavenly goddess luck. The water on her body had quickly evaporated, but this was nothing to her. It was just that she looked a little disheveled. I'm fine. The heavenly goddess of luck's face convulsed, and she felt extremely awkward. She was trying to make Etienne suffer, but who would have thought that she would be the one suffering instead? This surprised her. Why was she the unlucky one and not Etienne? What's going on? Could it be that he's luckier than me? In other words, The heavenly god of luck's bad luck has reversed. The heavenly god of luck continued to speculate, and in the end, she concluded that the bad luck had reversed on her. It's very likely that I used too much of it in the past, which is why this is happening. That was all she could be sure of. Regardless of whether it was luck or misfortune, she naturally could not use them carelessly. If used indiscriminately, the good would become the bad, so it was better to use it with caution. She did not think that Tianyun's luck was heaven-defying. After all, there were only a few people who could be as heaven-defying as her. Moreover, if he was really that lucky, Tianyun's reputation would have spread far and wide. Just like the goddess of fortune, people still came to pay their respects to her. However, the Fecta divine realm was the one who had built this temple, so they had purposely publicized it as a form of cover. As he continued walking, he soon left the heavenly mysterious divine lake. In contrast, the heavenly god of luck was extremely depressed. He had wanted to teach Tianyun a lesson, but who would have thought that he would suffer instead? Heavenly venerate heavenly cloud, as a guardian, you have to learn to keep a low profile. You can't be too high profile. Otherwise, you'll bring harm upon yourself. The heavenly god of luck could only try to persuade him. Am I not low profile enough? Tianyun was puzzled. You call this keeping a low profile? You even said that it's enough for the three realms deity realm to have you. Isn't that high profile? The heavenly goddess luck shook her head. Your cultivation base is not weak, and you also possess such a puppet. However, in the context of the entire divine realm, your cultivation base is only average. Understand? Tianyun looked her up and down in surprise. He didn't think that the heavenly goddess of luck would say something like this. Usually, with such luck, everything would come so quickly, and they would not have to suffer much. When that time came, she would definitely be even more arrogant and haughty. Who knew that she knew how to keep a low profile? What a surprise! Heavenly goddess luck, you know how to keep a low profile? Tianyun was quite amused. I thought you would be very arrogant, but I didn't think you'd be so understanding. The heavenly goddess of luck almost threw up a mouthful of blood. How am I arrogant? Even if my luck is quite good, I didn't get to where I am today purely because of luck. That's true. If you think I don't keep a low profile, then why don't you join my force and keep an eye on me? Tianyun suggested with a smile. Join your force? The heavenly goddess of luck rolled her eyes. She didn't know what Tianyun was talking about. I'm already an elder of the Fecta divine realm. How could I join your force? I'm not asking you to leave the Fecta divine realm. All you have to do is visit us from time to time and take care of some of my subordinates. You can just be a guest elder or something like that. Tell me what you want, and I'll definitely satisfy you as long as I can. Tianyun replied in a very forthright manner. You'll give me whatever I want. Your cultivation base is even lower than mine, so you might not be able to give me what I want. The heavenly goddess of luck rolled her eyes. How am I supposed to know what you want if you don't tell me? Tianyun shrugged in a resigned manner. So be it, I can't be bothered to tell you. You won't be able to give me anything anyway. The heavenly goddess of luck waved a hand, completely disregarding Tianyun's words. Then how can you become my guest elder? Tianyun asked. No way. I'm already so busy here, so why would I bother you? If you want to become my guest elder, you'll have to be luckier than me, but that's impossible. The heavenly goddess of luck waved a hand. Wait. Tianyun pointed at her. That's what you said. If my luck surpasses yours, then you'll have to join my force and become my guest elder. What a joke. Looks like you don't know how powerful I am. The heavenly goddess of luck was enraged to the point of bursting into laughter. If I lose, I'll become your guest elder, but what if I win? I can't just walk away empty-handed. That would be too much of a loss. Then what do you want? Tianyun looked directly into her eyes. The heavenly goddess of luck sized him up, and from her tone, it appeared that she really did want to compete with her. You really do know your place. The heavenly goddess of luck's eyes flashed as she said, if you lose, then hand over the evil spirit's pearl to me, and I'll look after it for you. That way, I'll be doing you a favor and not put you in any danger. That was indeed true. The evil spirit's pearl was an extremely dangerous item in the possession of some cultivators with low cultivation bases. However, the heavenly goddess of luck didn't have any benefits either. It was an extremely sinister item, and it could only be used in times of crisis. The heavenly goddess of luck's possession really did save him a lot of trouble. However, Tianyan didn't think that way. With the evil spirit puppet in his possession, the evil spirit's pearl would have a completely different effect. Chapter 1622. No problem. If I lose, I'll give the evil spirit's pearl to you. Tianyan immediately agreed. On the contrary, if you lose, you'll really have to become my guest elder. Deal. Seeing as you've said this, I'll naturally show you my sincerity as long as you don't go back on your word. As for vows and whatnot, I won't say anything more. It's all up to you. The heavenly luck god was very confident. She definitely wouldn't lose. After all these years, her luck had never been bad. Tianyan's luck was definitely inferior to the heavenly luck gods, but he still had his luck halo. With the enhancement of his luck halo, he was confident that he would be able to surpass the heavenly luck god. Of course, I won't go back on my word. Tianyan smiled. Alright, then come with me to a place where you can showcase your luck. A joyful smile appeared on the heavenly luck god's face. She was extremely elated at the thought of being able to obtain the evil spirit's pearl for the Fecta sacred realm to study. Heavenly god Luck immediately took Tianyan away from this place, and didn't show him around anymore. Moments later, they arrived at a certain place. Tianyan was greeted by the sight of a pile of special spirit stones in front of him. All of them were of different colors, and he couldn't tell what they were. From their colors, he could tell that they were all of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. They were all quite beautiful, and they were undoubtedly some special spirit stone crystals that could provide energy for the mechanical guards. These spirit stones had all been dug out from somewhere, and they were all piled up into a small mountain. There were many cultivators and mechanical guards picking through the spirit stones before slicing off a small piece to determine what grade they were. So many spirit stones? Tianyan looked at the pile of spirit stones with a perplexed expression. Are we going to compete in luck here? That's right, we're going to compete in luck here. The heavenly luck god smiled. Anyone can tell that this is a pile of spirit stones. No one can tell what grade these spirit stones are with their eyes or their spiritual senses. Only by cutting open these spirit stones will we be able to see their true grade. What we're competing on is very simple. We'll randomly pick a spirit stone, and then take it out to compete to see whose pick is of a higher grade. Let's not talk too much. Let's win 2 out of 3. How about it? The heavenly god of luck's competition was absolutely fair, and it was impossible to tell just how high the grade of the heavenly god's body was. Tianyan looked at her pitifully. To him, this was a gift. Normal eyes and spiritual sense couldn't distinguish it, but he didn't have normal eyes. Instead, he had a special probing eye. He could completely detect how high the grade of the item inside was. With a glance, all the information was presented in front of him. Needless to say, he already knew that he would win. No matter how heaven-defying his luck was, it couldn't possibly be better than his, right? He had already seen the answer, so how was he supposed to play? Unless she chose the one and only first, then he would definitely lose. Of course, he did not see any unique existence of a high rank, so at most it would be a draw, not a loss. Elder Luck, what are you doing here? At this moment, some cultivators saw the heavenly god of luck, and they immediately put down their work and flew toward her. I'm competing with his luck to see who can pick a higher grade spirit stone here. The heavenly god of luck smiled. May I stay here for a while? Competing with your luck? The guards looked at Tianyan as if they were looking at an idiot. Tianyan could see the words, overestimate yourself, in their eyes. They didn't think he would win at all. That's right, he's here to compete with me in terms of luck, which is why he's here. We'll have to cut some spirit stones later to compare our results. Is that okay? The heavenly god of luck asked. No problem at all. All of the cultivators gestured for her to pick any spirit stone she wanted. At the same time, they all spread the news of this competition. After spreading the news, the entire Fecta divine realm exploded. All of them had the same thought in their minds. This outsider was overestimating himself and trying to compete with the heavenly god of luck in terms of luck. Thus, all of them flew over from outside to see what kind of joke this was. They wanted to see just who was trying to compete with the heavenly god of luck in terms of luck. Soon, many disciples of the Fecta divine realm had gathered here, and even the elders had been alerted. This wasn't a big deal, as they just wanted to see the outsider get slapped in the face. Is that him? He wants to compete with the heavenly god of luck in terms of luck? Most likely. He's the only outsider here. His cultivation base is so low, yet he dares to compete with the heavenly god of luck in terms of luck. What a joke. Is this outsider here to be humiliated? All of them began to gossip about Etianyan, and all of them felt like Etianyan was an absolute joke. Etianyan ignored their stares and looked around to see which spirit stone has the highest grade, so he decided to lock it first. Are you ready? The heavenly god of luck asked as she looked at Etianyan. I'm ready, but ladies first. You go first. Etianyan indicated for the heavenly god of luck to choose the spirit stone first. He didn't want to choose the highest grade right from the start. All he wanted was for the spirit stone to be of a slightly higher grade than hers. Ladies first? You sure are a gentleman. The heavenly god of luck chuckled. However, you still have to hand over the evil spirit's pearl. She took a step forward and walked around the pile of spirit stones. She activated her luck to the maximum and quickly found a spirit stone. She picked it up and walked back to where the spirit stones were. I've already chosen it. This is the one. The heavenly god of luck extended the spirit stone to find that it was around the size of a fist. It wasn't very big, and it looked quite beautiful. Etianyan looked closely, and he was truly shocked. He had randomly picked up a spirit stone from the side of the road, and it was a spirit stone of a high grade. No wonder she was referred to as the heavenly god of luck. Alright, it's my turn to choose now. Etianyan smiled as he extended a foot to the side, upon which a thumb-sized spirit stone landed in his hand. This is the only one I have. What? You're just going to pick one from the side? The heavenly god of luck was astonished. He was just randomly picking one from the ground? Wasn't that a little too casual? Even though she couldn't tell, how could such a small and shriveled spirit stone be of a high grade? Chapter 1623. Etianyan looked like he had picked up a random spirit stone, and all of them were dumbstruck. Even if his luck was inferior, there was no need to be so perfunctory. This seemed to be a perfunctory response, an extremely perfunctory one at that, compared to the heavenly goddess Luck's spirit stone. The spirit stone that he had picked up was far inferior. Even though one couldn't tell much from the outside, there were some things that could be seen from a single glance. For example, the spirit stone in Etianyan's hand was of extremely poor quality, and it was far inferior to the spirit stone in the heavenly goddess Luck's hand. If the spirit stone in the heavenly goddess Luck's hand was like a work of art, then the spirit stone in Etianyan's hand was like a piece of trash that no one would pick up. Are you sure you want to compete with me in this aspect? The heavenly goddess Luck was a little enraged. He had agreed to compete with her in terms of luck, but wasn't this a little too perfunctory? That's right, I want to compete with you in this aspect. Etianyan smiled. All of the spectating cultivators immediately erupted into a frenzy upon hearing this. Is this outsider an idiot? How dare he do this? That's a blatant disrespect to Elder Luck. That's right. That's a blatant disrespect to Elder Luck. This isn't a competition. It feels like he's intentionally conceding defeat. It's very likely that he's intentionally conceding defeat in order to curry favor with Elder Luck. Curry favor? That's hilarious. Elder Luck hates this kind of thing the most. If that's the case, then he's just trying to suck up to Elder Luck. Their impression of Etianyan is greatly reduced. They think that he is really too weak. They want to have a good fight. Who knows that the other side won't fight? He just stood there and let people beat him at will. They really don't have the slightest interest. If his opponent was a very competitive type to begin with, then this was clearly an insult to all of them. He had clearly challenged them to a battle, yet he refused to take it seriously. How could this not infuriate them? All right, then let's do it. The heavenly luck goddess's eyes were filled with rage, and she couldn't even be bothered to say anything. All she wanted was to win the evil spirit's pearl. That was better than having it in Tianyun's hands. An elder walked over and smiled. Then I will be in charge of cutting these spiritual stones. Then I'll have to trouble you, Elder Swayu. The heavenly goddess Luck expressed her gratitude. It's not troublesome at all. I just need to cut off this spirit stone. Elder Swayu looked at Tianyun and said, Young friend, are you sure you don't want to change it? Although we can't easily identify these spirit stones with our eyes, according to my many years of experience, those that are of good quality are usually of good quality. As for those that are of poor quality, there might be some bright spots, but most of them are defective. These words were indeed true. He might not be able to see the exact grade, but it wasn't a problem for him to make a rough estimate. Elder Swayu, I will choose this one, Tianyun said firmly. All right then. Elder Swayu didn't try to persuade him any further. He had wanted Tianyun to take this seriously as a form of respect for the heavenly goddess Luck, but who would have thought that Tianyun wouldn't change his mind? After that, Elder Swayu picked up the heavenly luck god's spirit stone before slicing off a small, smooth section of the stone to reveal a deep, red section of the stone. Not bad, this is a 6th grade fire stone. It's quite a high grade. Elder Swayu was elated. Even though 6th grade fire stones weren't all that precious here and could still be found, it wasn't easy to find such a high grade fire stone. To be able to find a 6th grade fire stone just by walking around, the heavenly goddess Luck sure is lucky. The lucky elder is indeed the lucky elder. He is really too lucky. I've worked here for many years, but it's impossible for me to find it so quickly. They all sighed. Even the disciples who specialized in searching for spirit stones here might not necessarily be able to find it. They all had to search for a long time before they could find it. It's all right. The heavenly goddess Luck nodded. She felt like this was quite a good grade. Immediately afterward, everyone turned to look at Tianyun. It was now time for the spirit stone in his hand to be sliced open. Everyone didn't even need to cut open the spirit stone to know that it definitely wasn't a match for the heavenly goddess Luck. All right then, it's time to cut open the spirit stone. Seeing as this was a competition, they had to go through the necessary procedures. Elder Swayu then sliced open the spirit stone, only to reveal nothing but an inky black expanse. Trash. Elder Swayu faltered slightly upon seeing this. After slicing open the spirit stone, it was a worthless piece of trash. Everyone burst into raucous laughter upon seeing this. Who would have thought that this outsider would choose a worthless piece of trash that couldn't even be considered to be of a higher grade? He had completely lost. What a joke! He chose a worthless piece of trash. How embarrassing. It can't even reach the 1st grade? You have the nerve to bring it out like this. You're really thick-skinned. Perhaps he knew that he was going to lose for sure. So he chose a random worthless piece of trash. Even though they didn't have high hopes for Tianyun, they didn't think that he would lose so completely. I've won this round. The heavenly goddess Luck's expression was quite dark. She didn't feel like she had won. In fact, she didn't feel like she had won at all. How could she feel happy when her opponent wasn't even taking her seriously? Wait. Tianyun looked at Elder Swayu. Elder Swayu, can you cut a little more? This. Elder Swayu thought about it for a moment before continuing to cut a little more. Soon, a deep golden color appeared before everyone's eyes. They were all astonished upon seeing this, and someone even yelled, This is a 7th grade metal spirit stone. What? They were all astonished. This was a 7th grade metal spirit stone, which was even more powerful than the heavenly goddess Luck's spirit stone. Even though there was a difference in elemental attributes, it was only a disparity in grades. As long as the heavenly goddess Luck's grade surpassed hers, then Tianyun would win. Heavenly goddess Luck, I only have a tiny bit of this. Our competition doesn't care about quantity, right? Tianyun looked at the dumbstruck heavenly goddess Luck with a smile. What a joke. How could he have lost? How could he have picked a random spirit stone? There just so happened to be a 7th grade spirit stone right beside him, so why did he have to pick one? This really is a 7th grade spirit stone. The heavenly goddess Luck stared at him in astonishment. Why, you can tell what grade it is. Chapter 16:24. Tianyun's explanation was very convincing, and they all believed him. Perhaps it was precisely because of his firm conviction that he was willing to continue. If it were any other cultivator, they would have thrown it aside in disappointment instead of continuing to cut it. Of course, if it were any other cultivator, there was no way they would choose such a mundane spirit stone either. Who would have thought that such an ugly stone would be of a higher grade? All right, you've won this round. The number of stones won't be the deciding factor. The heavenly goddess Luck had a complex expression on her face. She had thought that Tianyun was just toying with her, but it looked like he really did want to compete with her. Was he really that lucky? Was he really going to beat her with a random spirit stone? Wasn't his luck a little too insane? She had only decided to do this after searching for a while. Tianyun had no choice but to choose the spirit stone next to his foot. All right, thank you for letting me win. A smile appeared on Tianyun's face. He was sure that he would be able to easily win the next round as well. He had already known from the very beginning that he was going to win. If he couldn't even win after knowing the answer, then he really had nothing to say. This is my negligence. I'm truly sorry, little friend Suiyu. Elder Suiyu was feeling very awkward. He had been working here for so long, but who would have thought that he would make such a huge mistake again? Don't worry, we'll just keep going until the end. Tianyun didn't reprimand him. This was only natural. If he looked too far ahead, he could very well miss out on a lot of things in the end. Of course. Elder Suiyu was still feeling very awkward. After all, there were so many people watching, and he was an elder, yet he had made such a huge mistake. How could he not be embarrassed? The second round is still the heavenly goddess Luck. You go first. Tianyun gestured for the heavenly goddess Luck to choose a spirit stone. All right. The competitive spirit in the heavenly goddess Luck welled up in her heart. If she continued to lose, then she would really lose. She had never thought that she would lose from the very beginning. Who knew that he would really lose a round? Since that was the case, then she had to be serious. She didn't want to become a guest elder of the god realm of the three realms. Or rather, she wanted to win the evil spirit's orb. The heavenly goddess of Luck immediately made her selection. This time, she activated her luck to the maximum, and all of the spirit stones around her began to tremble. The grade of the shaking spirit stones was not low either. They were all 6th or 7th grade spirit stones and above. He hadn't expected his luck to have such an influence, causing the spirit stones to tremble as if they were saying, "Choose me." It had to be said that Luck was really strong. He didn't even need to choose by himself, and he could already pick out a very good spirit stone. The heavenly god of Luck looked around to see if there were any higher grades. Soon, she picked out a relatively large one among the many spiritual stones. It was only slightly larger than a fist. I'll take this one. Heavenly goddess Luck took the spirit stone and made her way over. Then he handed the spirit stone to Elder Suiyu, indicating that he had chosen the spirit stone for the competition. I've already made my choice carefully this time. If I still lose, then it means that this is the will of the heavens. The heavenly goddess of Luck wore a calm expression. She had already unleashed everything she had, and if she still couldn't win, then there was really no way she could win. Tianyun took a casual glance at the spirit stone that the heavenly goddess of Luck had brought back before setting off to search for more spirit stones. He rummaged through the piles of spirit stones, and in the end, he found a gargantuan spirit stone that was several dozen times larger than the one that the heavenly goddess of Luck had obtained. Such a gargantuan spirit stone was carried out before being tossed onto the ground with a loud thump, indicating just how heavy it was. I'll take this one. Tianyun made his way over to them with a smile. This one. They all wore peculiar expressions on their faces. That's right, this one. Tianyun clapped his hands together before turning to them. Is there a problem? Generally speaking, the purer the spirit stone is, the better it is, not the bigger the spirit stone, the better. The larger the spirit stone and the more colorful it is, the more likely that it will be of a lower grade. This spirit stone of yours is multicolored, so it's not pure. There's a very high chance that it will be of a very low grade. Are you sure you're not going to change it? Elder Sui couldn't help but remind Lin. This was something that they had learned from many years of experience. The more colorful a spirit stone was, the more likely it was to be of a low grade. This was similar to how the more abilities one had, the less proficient they would be in any particular area, and the more mediocre they would be in. This was the case with the 5-colored spirit stone that Tianyan had obtained. It was very colorful, but it was too versatile, which was why it was of a low grade. Perhaps it would also be of a 3rd or 4th grade, but it would still be too low. After all, the heavenly goddess of luck was not going to obtain a spirit stone that was lower than a 6th grade spirit stone, right? Hence, it was more than enough to defeat Tianyan. I'm sure I'm not going to change it. I'll take this one. Tianyan smiled. Elder Sui shook her head and didn't say anything else. They had already given Tianyan another chance to make a choice. If he didn't cherish this opportunity, what else could he do? This outsider sure is confident. He chose a seemingly worthless spirit stone, but it's actually of a decent grade. Does he think he'll be able to obtain a high-grade spirit stone by accident this time? That's right, the grade of this spirit stone is definitely going to be low. This is a publicly acknowledged situation, and there are basically no exceptions. That's right. He's definitely going to suffer this time. Elder Sui even gave him a reminder, but he didn't take it seriously at all. Does he really think he's going to be lucky again? Even if Tianyan won this round, most people would have misjudged him. However, everyone knew about this spirit stone. If he still chose this spirit stone when everyone knew about it, then he was definitely going to lose. The heavenly goddess of luck's eyes were filled with disappointment. She had thought that she would have a good opponent, but it looked like she had made a random choice. She was relying on luck, but she was also relying on her own judgment. Luck alone really wasn't the right choice sometimes. Alright, let's start cutting the spirit stone that Elder Luck has chosen. Elder Sui began to cut the heavenly goddess of luck's spirit stone. Soon, a dark green light began to emanate from the spirit stone, which was even more solid and profound than before. Nice! An 8th grade green spirit stone. Elder Sui was elated. This was not a low-grade spirit stone. In fact, it could even be said that it was quite a high-grade spirit stone. There were mountains of spirit stones here, and there were only a handful that were 8th grade or above. Who would have thought that such a rare spirit stone would actually be picked out? This was not something that could be identified with the naked eye or spiritual sense, but the heavenly goddess of luck had managed to find it. Her luck was truly out of this world. Chapter 1625. Tianyan had anticipated that the heavenly god of luck would be able to pick out an 8th grade green spirit stone. The heavenly god of luck had already unleashed all of her power, so it would be impossible for her to be any worse than before. It's your spirit stone's turn now. Elder Sui took the huge spirit stone and quickly cut it. When the outer side was cut off, it immediately revealed a rainbow-colored section, and the details of the grade inside were revealed. Fire Spirit Stone 4th grade. Water Spirit Stone 4th grade. Earth Spirit Stone 4th grade. All of the spirit stones on the table were 4th grade, and they were all revealed to them. 4th grade spirit stones were far inferior to the heavenly god of Lux. However, this 5-colored spirit stone was quite expensive. But now they were comparing the grade, not the price. Furthermore, even if they were comparing prices, they would still lose out. Unless their grades were about the same, or their opponent was only 1 grade higher, there would be a massive disparity. I told you it's only 4th grade. Elder Sui shook his head. This was within his expectations. After seeing it so many times, he basically knew what was going on, so it was very rare for him to make a wrong judgment. Everyone else looked over and shook their heads. This was also within their expectations. This was how mediocre people were. They would lose for sure. She had chosen a very beautiful one this time, and it looked very big, but that didn't matter as the effect was right before their eyes. There was too much of a difference in grades, so the heavenly god of luck had won. You should have studied hard before coming to compete with me. The heavenly god of luck said expressionlessly. Even though she wasn't in charge of this place, there were some things that she knew quite well. She knew that this 5-colored spirit stone was quite good, but it was simply too difficult to obtain a high-grade one. No, wait a second. Tianyan smiled. Elder Suiyu, I already told you, you should continue to cut it, but this time, cut it toward the center. Tianyan pointed at the 5-colored spirit stone and gestured for Elder Suiyu to cut it there. But don't cut it so deep. Just cut it slightly to the side. Could it be that there are high-grade ones inside? Elder Suiyu furrowed his brows, but he still followed Tianyan's instructions and cut it down. At the same time, he cut it slightly to the side, and the entire 5-colored spirit stone was split into 2 halves. What appeared in front of everyone was a small, special spirit stone. It seemed to be a spirit stone that had fused together a large amount of energy. A special energy floated out just like that, causing them to tremble. This is an extremely rare Chaos Divine Stone, and it has just been formed not too long ago. Elder Suiyu said in shock. This is something that only very few people can find. Although it's only at the 6th grade level, in terms of value and grade, it's already at the 8th grade level. When the 5-colored spirit stones condensed to a certain extent, they would turn into primal chaos divine stones. However, it was extremely difficult to do so, so no one believed that there would be primal chaos divine stones. Now it had appeared. It was only at the 6th grade, which wasn't very high. However, in terms of value and grade, it could be said to be at the 8th grade. Wouldn't this be a draw? When everyone saw this, they were stunned. They didn't expect that Tianyan would find an extremely rare primal chaos divine stone. They were all dumbfounded. This should be a spirit stone that all of you have completely ignored. No one has been willing to pick it up. I guess it's piled up in a corner, silently absorbing the spiritual energy around it. Over time, it will condense into a primal chaos divine stone. Tianyan shrugged his shoulders and said, but it's only at the 8th grade level. So this is a draw? They thought that it was impossible for a primal chaos divine stone to appear, and its grade was relatively low. The mechanical guards needed a higher grade spirit stone to replenish their energy. If the grade was too low, it would be limited. Therefore, this type of 5-colored spirit stone was basically discarded in the corner, and no one would pick it up. Now the one that Tianyan picked up was quietly absorbing spiritual energy, and thus condensing a piece of primal chaos divine stone that surpassed most spirit stones. This was like a cultivator who was cultivating in silence. They usually appeared mediocre, but they would be able to amaze the world at a critical juncture. I lost. The heavenly god of luck shook her head and looked at Tianyan with a complex expression. I lost this time. In terms of value, that is indeed the case. However, in terms of rarity, it's even rarer than mine. If I continue to condense it, perhaps the effects will be even more astonishing. The heavenly god of luck admitted her loss without any hesitation. They were both at the 8th grade, but there was a difference in quality. The primal chaos divine stone was only at the 6th grade, but it was even more valuable. If she continued to condense it, it would definitely be of a higher grade. Hence, theoretically speaking, the heavenly god of luck had lost. Elder Luck has lost. This is unbelievable. Could it be that this outsider can see and even find primal chaos divine stones? It's very likely that he knows how to look at spirit stones. Otherwise, how would he know? Then this isn't fair at all. This isn't a contest of luck. It's a contest of how to look for spirit stones. They began to clamor among themselves, feeling like this was extremely unfair. Even Tianyan could see through spirit stones, so how could there be a contest of luck? Silence. The heavenly god of luck signaled for everyone to quieten down. Even if he can see through spirit stones, he still wins. First of all, I was the one who requested this competition. And second of all, this is a test of his strength, not cheating. This is indeed not a contest of luck, but a loss is a loss. I have nothing to say. If Tianyan could see through spirit stones, then this was no longer a contest of luck. The heavenly god of luck really couldn't see through spirit stones. It really was a contest of luck and experience. Even the heavenly god of luck had said this, so what else could they say? Indeed, I can see through spirit stones, so theoretically speaking, this isn't a contest of luck. Tianyan stepped forward with a smile on his face. How about this? Let's have another competition of luck. How about that? Tianyan knew that this would happen. After all, he had chosen spirit stones that were quite special on both occasions, so of course he would arouse suspicion. However, this was the only choice he could make. All of the other spirit stones were basically the same, and there was nothing special about them. Furthermore, he was purposely trying to establish a good relationship with the affected divine realm. They had been struggling to find spirit stones of a higher grade this entire time, and they had to cut them open every time, so it was quite troublesome. If Tianyan were to help them, then things would be different. Another competition? Everyone looked at one another, and they immediately developed a better impression of Tianyan. Chapter 1626. Tianyan didn't want to take advantage of Heavenly God. After all, he didn't make this choice himself. Was he going to pretend that he didn't use his detection eyes? At the end of the day, the Heavenly God of Luck's luck was truly out of this world. He had thought that he would be able to win easily after knowing the answer, but who would have thought that the Heavenly God of Luck would still choose the Spirit Stone of the highest grade? He had also chosen the 8th grade Spirit Stone, so he had no choice but to choose the Chaotic Divine Stone. Only then would he be able to win from the sidelines. In the end, he did indeed win, but everyone thought that he would be able to tell. Otherwise, how would he be able to tell that the Chaotic Divine Stone was such a peculiar item? Of course, if he didn't admit to it, no one would be able to do anything about it. He could say that he had chosen the stone because it was big and beautiful. How could that not be an act of insane luck? However, he didn't say that. Instead, he admitted that he was able to tell. Tianyan's straightforward admission made them have a good impression on Tianyan. This was actually just one of Tianyan's first moves. He wanted to show them that he was a straightforward and honest person. That's right, let's have another match. This is the final match, and the winner will be decided in one match. However, it has to be purely based on luck. I don't want to take advantage of you again. Tianyan looked at the Heavenly God of Luck. What do you think, Heavenly God of Luck? I don't think it's appropriate. A loss is a loss, and I have nothing to say. The Heavenly God of Luck still believed that she had lost and didn't want to continue. The previous matches weren't very fair, so we need to have another match. That way, all of my friends will also be convinced of my superiority. How about that? Tianyan proposed with a smile. That's right, Elder Luck. Let's have another match. Since he's already said that, then Elder Luck should accept his challenge. We admit that he's quite powerful, but this is a match of luck. That's right, let's have a match of luck. All of the surrounding disciples began to persuade the Heavenly God of Luck to have another match to broaden their horizons. The Heavenly Goddess of Luck was silent for a moment before replying. Then let's have a match. However, regardless of who wins or loses, the result will be decided according to this. The Heavenly God of Luck was adamant on this. She was adamant that she had lost, and she didn't want to change the result, even if they were to compete again. All of them wore resigned expressions, but they still agreed with the Heavenly God of Luck. No matter what, even if he lost, he would at least be able to win against this outsider in terms of luck. To them, the Heavenly Goddess of Luck was their goddess of luck, as well as the goddess of the affected divine realm. How could they lose in terms of luck? Therefore, no matter what, he had to turn the tables, or at least turn the tables with his luck. Then Elder Luck, I know of a place that is rather special. It really depends on luck to win. One of the disciples stood up and said, It should be said that you can rely on strength and luck, but you can also rely on pure luck. Are you talking about the mysterious heavenly divine lake? At that moment, a disciple beside him suddenly interrupted. That's right, it's the mysterious heavenly divine lake. There were so many treasures at the bottom of the mysterious heavenly divine lake, and many of them were ownerless. However, as long as you're lucky enough, you can still find some excellent treasures. How about we use that as the basis for the evaluation? These disciples started recommending all at once. With just a slight mention, there was immediately a location for the competition. The mysterious heavenly divine lake. Tianyan shook his head. He didn't think that they would have to go to that place. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that it was indeed a good place to compete. All right, let's go to the mysterious heavenly divine lake then. The heavenly god of luck felt that it was a good place. Then they headed toward the mysterious heavenly divine lake. Originally, there weren't many cultivators in the area, but now there was a group of people gathered around. Tianyan and the heavenly god of luck stood in the center of the mysterious heavenly divine lake with a large group of cultivators observing their every move. Who would have thought that I would be back here again? Tianyan couldn't help but burst into laughter as he recalled what had happened. The heavenly god of luck was trying to make him fall into the water, but who would have thought that she would fall into the water instead? The heavenly god of luck blushed as she turned around and harumphed coldly. Then let's have a competition now. Let's see who can pick out the best treasure. How about that? There are many ownerless treasures below, as well as many damaged treasures. Some of them look intact on the surface, but their insides are actually extremely damaged. Some of them look damaged on the surface, but their insides are actually very good. I can't detect them with my spiritual sense alone. Only by touching them will I be able to sense what's going on. Tianyan looked around and found that there was really no problem with that. His detection eyes could tell what grade they were, but he couldn't tell what was going on with them. In other words, he couldn't tell what was going on with their internal injuries. This was indeed a fair competition. At the very least, he wouldn't be able to tell what was going on. No problem, let's choose this place. I really can't tell what's going on this time. Tianyan smiled. All right, are you going first this time, or shall I go first? The heavenly god of luck asked. You go first. Ladies first as usual. Tianyan made an inviting hand gesture, indicating that she could begin. The heavenly god of luck didn't decline. It didn't matter who came first anyway. She immediately arrived at the area beside the bridge and raised a hand, upon which the power of luck was quickly unleashed. Moments later, the piles of weapons began to tremor. This was the same as the spirit stones from before, but they were trembling even more violently this time. And some of the weapons flew directly toward the heavenly god of luck. However, the heavenly god of luck didn't catch them. Instead, she evaded them with ease. There was no doubt that she was interested in any of the weapons flying toward her. Heavenly god of luck really is omnipotent. Even these treasures have chosen her as their owners. Tianyan's heart sank as he looked at the treasures flying toward him. These treasures were either already owned, or they hadn't been attracted by the heavenly god of luck. Not all treasures could be attracted by the heavenly god of luck. Everyone was then greeted by a miraculous sight. There were countless treasures flying toward the heavenly goddess of luck, all of whom were fighting to become her personal treasures. Other people probably wouldn't even receive such treatment, even if they stood here for an entire day. All the heavenly god of luck had to do was stand here, and there were all types of treasures for her to choose from. Chapter 16:27. This is the one. The heavenly goddess Luck gripped her longsword tightly and swung it through the air, upon which a bright silver sword projection flashed through the air. The sword projection appeared to be quite mundane and mundane. The entire sword only had a touch of silver on it. Other than that, there was nothing special about it. Be it the decoration or the material, there didn't seem to be anything special. This is the Silver Moon Divine Sword. Someone suddenly exclaimed. Clearly, he had a deep impression of this divine sword. After shouting it out, the other cultivators exclaimed one after another. It was obvious that they had also thought of this Silver Moon Divine Sword. It really is the Silver Moon Divine Sword. This seems to be a divine weapon used in the Battle of God Emperors a long time ago, right? It was unknown how much evil spirit race blood it had been dyed with, and it had killed countless people. The Silver Moon Divine Sword was severely damaged at that time, but it seems like it has recovered quite a bit. If we look at it according to its grade, it should be a lesser celestial god spiritual treasure. That's right. This isn't an ordinary lesser celestial god spiritual treasure either. It's probably even comparable to an intermediate celestial god spiritual treasure. The Lucky Elder is indeed the Lucky Elder. I never expected to find such a shocking treasure in this heavenly mysterious deity's lake. This heavenly mysterious deity's lake was equivalent to a useless deity's lake. Although it could restore treasures, the restoration speed was very slow. Most of the cultivators felt that the cost of repairing it was too high, or they were too lazy to repair it, so they abandoned it here. If he really liked it, or if it was really good, he would have taken it to be repaired long ago. Why would he leave it here to be repaired? To put it bluntly, it was a useless deity's lake. Most of the items here were ownerless. If someone wanted them one day, they could get them from here. However, it wasn't something that could be casually fished out. One had to obtain the approval of an elder before they could come over and fish for a bit. I can't take more, I can only take one. No matter how one looked at it, the treasures discarded here were all treasures obtained from countless battles in the past. Their grades weren't low, and the blood energy they carried wasn't weak either. It was pretty good to use in battle. The fact that Heavenly Goddess Luck was able to obtain the Silver Moon Divine Sword was already quite impressive. If it were any other cultivator, it would already be quite impressive if they could even obtain a Heavenly Venerate Spirit treasure. Most importantly, some of them were stained with murderous aura. They wouldn't just casually recognize someone as their master. Those who came here to choose treasures had to have sufficient strength. Otherwise, even ownerless treasures would not be easily subdued. The Silver Moon Divine Sword is almost fully repaired, and its overall condition is good. Its grade is equivalent to a lesser celestial god spiritual treasure. The Heavenly Goddess of Luck was very satisfied with this Silver Moon Divine Sword. She then looked at Tianyan and said, "This is the treasure I have chosen. However, if you want to subdue these high-grade treasures, you will need a higher cultivation base. Your cultivation is slightly low. Even if you have a heavenly deity spiritual treasure, you won't be able to subdue it. How about this? As long as you can subdue an upper Empyrean spirit treasure, and the quality isn't low, then it's considered your win." Tianyan's cultivation base was only at the intermediate Heavenly Venerate final stage. If he could surpass the Heavenly Luck God, then that would be insane. Heavenly God spirit treasures were hard to obtain in the first place. In this garbage dump, to find one that was intact and of a high grade was even more difficult. After all, when he looked down, all he could see was a pitch-black mass. If he casually scooped it up, he really wouldn't be able to get any good treasures. He would really have to rely on luck to scoop up these treasures, unless he casually scooped them up and inspected them one by one. However, that would be breaking the rules. He would have to scoop up a decent treasure without inspecting it. Some of the treasures might be of a high grade, but the insides of the treasures were rotten beyond recognition, so they could only be judged as trash and couldn't even be considered treasures. This Silver Moon Divine Sword had almost fully recovered. In theory, it was a decent treasure, so it could naturally be considered a success. The Heavenly Goddess of Luck's understanding immediately won the admiration of all the surrounding cultivators. Tianyan smiled and didn't say anything. He arrived at the place where the Heavenly Goddess of Luck had been standing before, and raised his hand in the air. The halo of luck within his body instantly erupted. Boom! An invisible force surged into the Heavenly Fate Divine Pond. Immediately afterward, countless treasures flew into the air like carps leaping through the Dragon's Gate. Such a massive force was even more powerful than the Heavenly Goddess of Luck's. All of these treasures flew toward Tianyan one by one. However, he could only pick one treasure, so he was able to easily evade all of them without letting them fall into his arms. Everyone was dumbstruck upon seeing this. Why was this force even more powerful than the Heavenly Goddess of Luck's? Usually, only those with heaven-defying powers would be able to attract these treasures to automatically acknowledge them as their masters. Only then would it be luck, which was the luck of picking a good treasure. After all, these treasures all had their own spirits. When they encountered a master with boundless potential, they would definitely want to immediately acknowledge him as their master. This outsider's aura is even more powerful than Elder Luck's. Is this still a Heavenly Venerate? When I stood here before, only a small portion of the treasures reacted. Most of them didn't react at all. What's going on? Fuck, I don't understand. They were all about to go crazy. Even the Heavenly Goddess of Luck was dumbfounded. She had lowered her standards and allowed Tianyan to obtain a high-level Heavenly Venerate spirit treasure. Furthermore, the quality of the spirit treasure wasn't too bad, so he could defeat her. But judging from the current situation, even a low-level heavenly god spirit treasure would be no problem, let alone a high-level heavenly venerate spirit treasure. Tianyan ignored the gazes around him. His eyes scanned the surroundings to see if there were any treasures that were suitable for him. However, no matter how he looked, it seemed to be quite ordinary. He had to obtain a heavenly god spirit treasure no matter what, right? He didn't lack heavenly venerate spirit treasures, and he really didn't have a single heavenly god spirit treasure. Having a heavenly god spirit treasure to protect himself was quite a good thing. After waiting for a while, a white light suddenly emerged from the depths of the heavenly mystery divine lake. Immediately afterward, a fan flew toward Tianyan's face. Tianyan's eyes lit up, and he quickly grabbed the fan that was flying toward him. At the same time, he withdrew his aura, and the treasures flying around him fell back into the water. Everything returned to normal. Right now he was holding a fan in his hand. This fan looked a little tattered, and the words and drawings on it weren't very clear. However, he could still make out some unique handwriting amidst the blur. I'll choose this fan. Tianyan didn't care about its damage. This fan gave him a very good feeling. It was very mysterious, and there was a special kind of energy revolving around it. Hence, even if it was damaged, he still decided to choose this fan. In terms of grade, this fan was equivalent to a mid-level heavenly god spirit treasure. Chapter 1628. Everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets upon seeing Tianyan's choice of a fan, and it was a tattered fan at that. They had seen a lot of good treasures, and all of them looked very intact, so they had most likely been repaired. According to the criteria that the heavenly goddess Luck had mentioned, Tianyan had at least a dozen chances to defeat her. In any case, there were still a dozen or so upper heavenly venerate spirit treasures, but Tianyan didn't choose any of them. Instead, he chose a tattered fan. If the inside of the fan was severely damaged, then he would lose. Even though they didn't want the heavenly goddess Luck to lose, it would be far too arrogant for Tianyan to let go of such an obvious opportunity to win. How could they not be displeased with him for choosing something so unorthodox instead of such an arrogant choice? He had to win when he deserved it, not be so arrogant. He chose a tattered fan instead of choosing anything else. It looks like it's quite damaged. That's right. Even if it's a heavenly god spirit treasure, it's still a piece of trash after being damaged to this extent, right? That's right. He's too arrogant. He's quite powerful, but he's too arrogant. It looks like he's going to lose for sure if he chooses a tattered weapon. It doesn't matter even if he loses. Elder Luck said that she would lose regardless of whether she wins or loses. All of them were very displeased with Tianyan's choice. This is the Fecta Divine Fan. It was the personal treasure of our previous region lord. At this moment, one of the elders stared intently at the fan in Tianyan's hand, and his voice began to tremble. It really does look like the Fecta Divine Fan. It was the personal treasure of the previous region lord. It slew countless demon kings and was extremely damaged in the end. It looks like it's only been repaired a little bit. That's right, it should only be repaired a little bit. The previous region lord left it here to be repaired, so no one could find it. Who would have thought that it would be found by an outsider? Only they, the elders, knew what this fan was, and its significance was a bit greater. It was the personal treasure of the previous region lord, so it was at least a upper heavenly god spirit treasure. Such a treasure had an absolute significance. If they got their hands on it, even if it was trash, they would still treat it well. The main reason was because the significance of this treasure was simply too great. It was a divine artifact that had contributed greatly to the battle between god emperors. The Fecta divine realm had only survived because of this treasure. How could this not be significant? It wasn't just big. It was as if the previous region lord had come in person. A long time ago, someone wanted to find this fan and put it up for worship. But no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find it. But now it was in Tianyan's hands. Their eyes lit up, and they all wanted to snatch it. The Fecta divine fan has suffered serious internal damage. Fortunately, judging from its power, it should be an upper Empyrean spirit treasure. Tianyan inspected it, and found that the internal damage was indeed serious. He did not know how long the celestial pearl divine fan had been in the mysterious heavenly divine lake, but it had only been slightly repaired. It was obvious that the Tianji divine fan was too seriously damaged to the point of being beyond repair. However, if he were to throw it into the heavenly mysterious divine pond, he would be able to recover bit by bit. However, it would take a long time for him to fully recover. Right now, it had only been slightly repaired, but in terms of overall power, it was still equivalent to an Upper Empyrean spirit treasure. It had not lost. I wonder if I've won this time? Tianyun looked at the heavenly luck goddess. The heavenly luck goddess smiled wryly. You've even brought out your realm-defining treasure. Even if it's trash, it's still my loss. This item was extremely rare, and it held great significance. Even if it was trash, it was still a win. This was a treasure that could not be determined by its grade. It could be said that none of the treasures in the pond could compare to it. Many elders had tried to fish it out, but they were unable to find it in the end, which was a great pity to them. Sometimes, they even wondered if the celestial pearl divine fan was in the pond. It looked like it really was in the pond, but they just couldn't find it. Now that the celestial pearl divine fan had been drawn out and given to Tianyun, it meant that Tianyun had the right to own the celestial pearl divine fan. There had been so many elders in the past, but none of them had been able to find a single fan. Now that it was in Tianyun's possession, didn't that mean that he had the right to own it? The fact that he possessed the personal treasure of the previous realm lord could very well imply something. Realm-defining treasure? Tianyun looked at the fan. He only felt that it was a very good fan, but he didn't know that it was a realm-defining treasure. If it could be repaired, the celestial pearl divine fan would become a higher heavenly god spirit treasure. Especially after being bathed in blood for countless years, its power would be even more astonishing. However, it was far too difficult to repair. He had to soak it in water for a very long time before it could even recover a tiny bit. At the very least, no one else would be able to repair it. After all, it was far too difficult, so they could only take it back and worship it. However, Tianyun wasn't worried about this. He had the fusion system mode, which allowed him to fuse all types of heavenly venerate spirit treasures into the celestial pearl divine fan. When the time came, this celestial pearl divine fan could be repaired. He wasn't an idiot, so he wouldn't just take a random treasure. He would only take it if it was powerful. Furthermore, he didn't know anything about the celestial pearl divine fan, so he wouldn't even know that it had belonged to the previous realm lord. That's right, this is a realm-defining treasure. You still won this round. In terms of luck, I'm no match for you. The heavenly luck goddess shook her head with a wry smile. She had thought that she would be able to win this round, but she still lost in the end. Even though she had said that regardless of whether this round was won or lost, Tianyun had still won. She still wanted to win the next round. Only then would she be able to redeem some of her dignity. Who would have thought that she would still lose in the end? Let alone in terms of strength. She had even lost to Tianyun in terms of luck. Ahem, I was just lucky to have chosen the celestial pearl divine fan. Tianyun consoled with a smile. Under normal circumstances, I would probably be far inferior to you. A loss is a loss. I'll fulfill my promise. I'll explain the situation to the realm lord, and he'll allow me to do so. The heavenly luck goddess was a little dejected. She had always felt that her luck was quite good, but she had lost to someone else. How could she be in a good mood? The surrounding disciples looked at one another. Who would have thought that the outsider would win in the end? How incredible! Who is this outsider? Are all the cultivators in the outside world so powerful? Just who is he, and what is he doing here? Regardless of who he is, he still defeated Elder Luck fair and square. Also, I'm going to look for his spirit stones. Chapter 1629. Fellow cultivator, can you help us look at the spirit stones? We'll reward you handsomely. That's right. Come with us and help us look at the spirit stones first. There are too many spirit stones. We have to cut a lot of them every day, and many of them are useless. It's such a waste of time. That's right, come and help us. We'll definitely reward you handsomely. All of the disciples had come to invite Tianyan to help them look at the spirit stones, so that they could pick out the higher-grade spirit stones. After all, the higher-grade spirit stones had to be used on the mechanical guards, while the lower-grade spirit stones could be used by the disciples for cultivation, or to forge other things. Now the priority was given to the mechanical guards, so the workload was quite heavy. It was quite difficult to pick out the higher-grade spirit stones first. They had been there for a long time, so they could only roughly identify the spirit stones, so their speed was still quite slow. That's not a problem. Tianyan turned to the Heavenly Luck Goddess with a smile. Don't be too dejected, Heavenly Luck Goddess. You'll find out in the future that even losing to me was a fortunate thing. He chortled with glee before departing with the other disciples. The Heavenly Luck Goddess faltered upon hearing this before stomping her foot violently. What the hell did he say? Losing to him is a fortunate thing? She bit down on her lower lip and stared at Tianyan's departing figure before giving chase. I refuse to believe that he'll be able to identify all of the spirit stones. The competition between the two of them had concluded, and all of the surrounding cultivators had left. At the same time, they spread the news of what had happened here to inform everyone of what had transpired. It had to be said that this news had definitely shaken the entire Fecta sacred realm. The Heavenly Luck Goddess had lost just like that, and she had lost in terms of luck at that. Many people were unable to accept this, but this was the truth, so they had no choice but to believe it. Tianyan followed along and immediately began to help out. He scanned through the crowd and roughly understood the situation. What grade spirit stones do you want? Tianyan asked. Grade 5, it's fine as long as they're all grade 5 or above. There are too many grades below the 5th grade. Some of them look like they are 5th grade, but when we cut them open a little, we found that they are actually 3rd or 4th grade. This has greatly increased our workload. They wanted to cry but had no tears. The main reason was that their expenses were too high. They had to quickly replenish their supplies. If there was no time limit, they wouldn't be in such a hurry and could take their time. Spirit stones of grade 5 and above. Tianyan took another look and said with a smile. Indeed, there are quite a lot of spirit stones below grade 5. Among the 10 spirit stones, there were 7 or 8 spirit stones within the 4th grade. How could this not be a waste of time? Although they could be distinguished with a single cut, they still needed to be cut, and it would take a lot of time. In particular, he couldn't cut them too fiercely, or they would be easily damaged. The larger the spirit stone, the better. It could not be destroyed, or it would lose a large amount of energy. Then we'll have to trouble you to help us. They pleaded, hoping that Tianyan would be able to identify the spirit stones. At this moment, even the Heavenly Goddess Luck was watching from the side, trying to see how Tianyan was going to identify the spirit stones. She was unable to do so no matter how hard she tried. Even the other elders were unable to identify the spirit stones. If they could identify the spirit stones so easily, they would have done so a long time ago. They wouldn't have asked an outsider like Tianyan to do so. They really had no choice but to hurry up and finish the work like this. Even Elder Sui was watching from the side, so it was quite clear just how difficult it was to identify the spirit stones. That's not a problem. Tianyan waved a hand with a smile, and a burst of special power enshrouded the area, sucking in one spirit stone after another before transforming them into a small mountain. These are all spirit stones above the 5th grade. You can have a look. Of course, I can't guarantee that all of them are correct, so please forgive me if there are any mistakes. So quickly? All of them were dumbstruck. He was able to identify the spirit stones so quickly? It had only been a short while, and he had already finished searching through the spirit stones. All of them then rushed over to cut through the spirit stones one by one, and they were immediately able to identify the 5th grade spirit stones. This is a 5th grade spirit stone. Mine is also a 5th grade spirit stone. Mine is a 6th grade spirit stone. All of them began to cut through the spirit stones in a frenzy, and they all let loose cries of surprise as they discovered that they really were all 5th grade spirit stones. There were no mistakes, and all of them were at least 5th grade spirit stones. All of them were astonished by this, and Elder Sui couldn't help but make his way over to Tianyan. Friend, as long as you tell us how to identify these spirit stones, we'll be sure to reward you handsomely. In other words, we'll agree to whatever reward you want as long as it's within the scope of our agreement. They desperately needed this kind of ability. There were countless spirit stones piled up like mountains here, and there were millions of them coming in every day. If they had this kind of identification method, then it would be far too easy. I'm very sorry about this. It's not that I'm hiding it, but it's completely based on my intuition, and not on my eyesight. Tianyan shook his head. You guys can't tell, so how could I? It's completely based on a special kind of intuition. I felt that these spirit stones were of a higher grade, so I took them out. Tianyan definitely wouldn't say that it was the work of the appraisal eye. They didn't have the appraisal eye, so there was no point in saying it. Moreover, he really didn't have any identification method, so he couldn't say it even if he wanted to. If he could say it, he would definitely say it. Anyway, this wasn't a big secret, so it wouldn't matter if he said it. However, there was no way to impart it, so he could only choose to refuse. Relying on intuition. I've heard of this before, that some cultivators have extremely strong intuition in certain aspects. It's just like those martial arts geniuses. After exchanging a few moves with you, they'll be able to learn your moves. Elder Sui Yu shook his head, feeling that it was a pity. Since they couldn't impart it to him, they could only give up. Since it's like this, then during this period of time, I hope that fellow Taoists can help me. Recently, this matter has been rather urgent. No problem, it's just a small matter. Tianyan patted his chest and laughed. All right. Elder Sui Yu laughed loudly. I like that fellow Taoist is so straightforward. If there's anything, feel free to come and find us. If we can help, we will definitely help. Elder Lucky stared blankly at the side. It was such a difficult identification, but Tianyan was able to identify it. It seemed like she had really dug a big hole for herself by choosing the competition. I thought that other people wouldn't be able to see it, but it turns out that there are quite a few people with special abilities in this world. She thought for a moment. Wasn't her exceptional luck one of those abilities? Chapter 1630. Tianyan walked over to the Heavenly God of Luck and said with a smile, Heavenly God of Luck, Heavenly God of Luck. Heavenly God Luck, you came as well? The Heavenly God Luck rolled her eyes. Didn't I say I was going to take you around the Fecta sacred realm? We're not even halfway there yet, so of course I have to take you around. So that's how it is. Thank you, Heavenly God of Luck. Tianyan said with a smile. He didn't refuse the Heavenly God of Luck. Thus, Tianyan followed the Heavenly God Luck to the other regions to check out the current situation in the Fecta sacred realm. There was a huge difference between the Fecta divine realm and the other divine realms. The planets in the Fecta divine realm were basically connected to each other. This was somewhat similar to Yuelong's sacred realm, but it was more similar. In particular, the planets were connected to one another using all types of machinery to form a passageway. Thus, even those with low cultivation bases would be able to traverse between different planets through this passageway. The main purpose of connecting the planets together was to unleash the most powerful attacks and defenses. This was definitely the most basic ability of the Fecta sacred realm. Aside from that, Tianyan could also see many mechanical guards patrolling this place. Even though there was a very powerful formation here, they didn't let their guard down in the slightest. These mechanical guards sure are strict. It's so safe here. Why aren't you willing to relax? Tianyan asked. Safe. There's no such thing as absolute safety, especially under special circumstances like this. The Heavenly God Luck shook her head. What special circumstances? Tianyan was perplexed. You're a guardian, so I won't hide anything from you. The evil spirit race has been on the move recently, and they've been trying to find a way out of the Fecta sacred realm. As such, every entrance is guarded by powerful beings, which is why I'm stationed there. The Heavenly God Luck said, the evil spirit race is all-pervasive, and they can even control cultivators before infiltrating this place. For example, they can contaminate their bloodlines and turn them into spies. Tianyan said in surprise. It seems like you guys are quite knowledgeable in this aspect. Of course we know that some of our disciples are under their control. Fortunately, we found out in time and didn't expose the situation here. The heavenly luck goddess chuckled coldly. Our security measures are of the highest level, so it's impossible to avoid detection. No matter the slightest change, we will be able to detect it immediately. This is amazing. Yi Tianyun's impression of the Fecta divine realm had once again changed greatly. He never thought that it would have such a shocking ability. He thought back to Yuelong's divine realm. He didn't even know that most of it was being controlled. He didn't just wander around to check out the Fecta divine realm. He also wanted to see if anyone was being controlled. After going one round, he found that there were no problems. It turned out that there was already a detection method here. He is indeed powerful, but we still need to be on guard. The heavenly god of luck replied in a solemn voice. In any case, we have to be on our guard. The evil spirit race is not weak, and even though they have been weakened significantly, they are becoming more and more powerful. They must have used some sort of method to travel through the barrier to provide reinforcements. It was no surprise that the Fecta divine realm knew about the barrier. The Fecta divine realm was extremely knowledgeable, and they wouldn't be the Fecta divine realm if they didn't even know about this. Have you all checked it out? Yi Tianyan asked. That's right, we've all checked it out. The barrier is completely unscathed, but they are constantly becoming more powerful. There must be some sort of special method that allows the evil spirit race to keep coming over. According to the records of previous battles, only a small portion of the evil spirit race managed to survive. However, they are becoming more and more powerful. Even if they have extremely powerful survival abilities, they shouldn't be this powerful. This was something they could not understand. Unless they were deep in the enemy's ranks, then things would be different. Do you know where they are? Yi Tianyun's eyes lit up. He had the evil spirit puppets so he could go over and investigate. Yes. The heavenly god Luck had no doubts about this. As the guardian of the barrier, Yi Tianyan knew about these things. She then pulled out a star compass and marked out a location on it. This is the area, but it's only one of the locations. I'm not sure about the rest. Our enemies are extremely powerful, so we can't investigate them recklessly. Otherwise, we'll be discovered. Alright. Yi Tianyan took the star compass and committed this location to memory. That way, he would be able to directly search for them next time. This is the 5th grade divine realm? That's right. They're staying in the 5th grade divine realm, which is naturally the area closest to the barrier. In reality, the Fecta divine realm is located in the 5th grade divine realm, the heavenly god Luck explained. I see. Yi Tianyan nodded. Are there any good divine realms in the 5th grade divine realm? Of course there are. I should say that most of them are good. They're all guardians of the barrier. However, there are a few who aren't very sociable, and some of them are accomplices who survived the divine arch battle. The heavenly god Luck replied. You're not going to join forces to eliminate all of the survivors of the divine arch battle? Yi Tianyan was perplexed. They've all been bewitched, and if a battle were to break out there would definitely be many casualties. Besides, we don't dare to do anything unless we're absolutely certain of our victory. If the evil spirit tribe were to take advantage of this situation, we would be in deep trouble, the heavenly god Luck explained. That's true. The heavenly god Luck then explained a lot of things to Yi Tianyan. After listening to her, Yi Tianyan had a much better understanding of the situation. This was far more detailed than the records he had obtained from the 3 realms. The records he had obtained from the 3 realms were also quite detailed, but those were all things from a very long time ago, so he needed more recent information. Why don't you know anything? Aren't you a guardian? You should know a lot, especially with the Divine Spirit Tribe as your backer. The heavenly god Luck had even mentioned the Divine Spirit Tribe. The Divine Spirit Tribe has already declined, and only a small portion of their power remains, which is far weaker than all of you. Yi Tianyan shook his head. Hence, there's still a lot that I don't know. Thank you for your explanation. He was not surprised that she knew about the Divine Spirit Tribe. I see. The heavenly god Luck replied. That's not important. We'll unite to fight against the evil spirit tribe. Her eyes were filled with righteousness. The heavenly god Luck was full of righteousness. Chapter 1631. A thought suddenly occurred to the heavenly goddess Luck, and she stared intently at Tianyin. You know so much. Are you going to investigate the evil spirit tribe? She recalled that Tianyin had a puppet, so it would be a good idea to use that evil spirit puppet. That's right. I plan to go there and investigate the situation, Tianyin replied. Take me with you? The heavenly goddess Luck's eyes immediately lit up. No, that's too dangerous. Tianyin immediately refused. Even though he could take her with him, it wasn't very convenient. If he could go on his own, then he would definitely go on his own. Most importantly, there were some things that he couldn't let her know. Otherwise, it could easily lead to trouble. My cultivation base is higher than yours, yet you're not afraid, so why should I be? The heavenly goddess Luck pouted with displeasure. It's not the same. If you come out to fight, you'll be exposed very easily. If that happens, all of my plans will be ruined. Tianyin looked at her and said, So you just stay here. If you want to know more details, wait for me to come back. I see. Heavenly goddess Luck couldn't hide her disappointment as she looked up at Tianyin and said, Then can I ask you for a favor? What is it? Tianyin asked. Help me find an evil spirit tribe being. His name is Gokai. The heavenly goddess Luck's eyes were extremely cold. Find him, then come back and report to me. I'll reward you handsomely. Gokai? That's not a problem. Did he offend you? Tianyin asked. The heavenly goddess Luck looked up at Tianyin, and Tianyin could see an extremely cold killing intent in her eyes. He killed my little sister. Tianyin fell silent. He didn't think that this would be such a heavy topic. After a while he nodded. No problem, I'll help you find him. What if I bring him back to you alive? If you can capture him alive, then I'll become an elder of your force forever. Not just a guest elder. And I'll teach him my martial arts to help you develop your force. Heavenly goddess Luck promised in an earnest manner. That's ruthless enough. Tianyin smiled and said, No problem, I like this answer very much. It's decided then. At that time, I will definitely capture him alive for you to deal with. After saying that, they continued to wander around the area. As they continued to wander around, a guard flew over and said, Elder Fortune, the Protectorate Lord wants you and this lord to go together. So fast. The heavenly god of Luck faltered upon hearing this. It had only been a few weeks, and the Fekta region ruler was already telling them to go back? She didn't ask any more questions and immediately flew back with Tianyin. When he returned to the Fekta Domain Lord's room, the Fekta Domain Lord was still circling around the ghoul puppet and seemed to be sizing it up. Fekta region leader, what is it? Heavenly goddess Luck asked. You're back. The Fekta Domain Lord stroked his chin with furrowed brows as he looked at the ghoul puppet. This is so miraculous. No matter how I try to imitate it, I'm unable to completely replicate it. I can only imitate it to a certain extent, but there's always something missing. At this moment, Tianyin discovered that there was an identical being beside him. It didn't appear to be any different, but there was a significant cultivation-based disparity, and its aura was also nowhere near as realistic as Tianyin's. It's missing a soul, Tianyin replied after a brief moment of thought. It's missing a soul? The Fekta Domain Lord faltered upon hearing this before slapping his own head. I almost forgot about that. No wonder I felt like something was missing. It's a soul. But if I were to insert the ghoul puppet's soul into it, wouldn't I be controlled by them? He fell into deep thought again, and no one knew what he was thinking. Tianyin, who was next to him, was deeply shocked. He didn't think that the Fekta Domain Lord would be able to replicate the ghoul puppet in such a short time. There were some differences, but they were basically the same. Now the only difference was the cultivation base and the soul. However, the soul was indeed very important, and there was also the blood energy within it. These 2 points were the only things that he felt were different. As long as these 2 points were taken care of, he could perfectly imitate the ghoul puppet. In fact, he could even say that it was no different from the ghoul puppet. Once he succeeded, he would be able to launch an absolute counterattack. The Fecta domain would immediately create a large number of ghoul puppets and attack the ghoul race together. No one would be able to tell who was on their side, and they would be able to lay an ambush there to gather more information. They would also be able to kill the ghoul race in secret. Unfortunately, these 2 points were the hardest to achieve. In fact, they could even be said to be the most difficult task to accomplish. Therefore, the Fecta domain lord was thinking about how to solve these 2 problems. Although he hadn't succeeded, it was already quite amazing that he could produce a 70 to 80% replica. If it were him, he definitely wouldn't be able to produce something as exquisite as this. The Fecta domain was indeed the Fecta domain. Its abilities far surpassed the other divine regions. How did you solve it? The Fecta domain lord suddenly turned to look at Yi Tianyin. But after he asked, he shook his head and said, "No, that's not right. This is a secret of yours. Pretend I never said anything." The Fecta domain lord answered his own question again. It was obvious that the situation had stumped him. "I'm almost done with this ghoul puppet. I can give it back to you now. If it wasn't yours, I would have cut it into pieces and studied every detail." The Fecta domain lord was still looking at the ghoul puppet reluctantly. If he had obtained it, he would have cut it into pieces. Yi Tianyin looked at the ghoul puppet that looked no different from being cut into pieces. Was there really a difference? Its limbs had been cut open, and many of its insides had been cut open. Then, the Fecta domain lord had repaired it. What difference did it make? However, he couldn't be bothered to care. The Fecta domain lord had already repaired it for him. There's no point in cutting it into pieces. This is the key point. How you deal with it is up to you. That's all I can say. Yi Tianyin had a meaningful look on his face. The Fecta domain lord's eyes flashed. Then he smiled and said, "I'll test it out in the near future. There are a lot of ghoul race clansmen here anyway." He chuckled. This old man looked like an old man, but his smile was very sinister. A chill ran down Yi Tianyin's spine. It looked like the ghoul race clansmen were going to be in trouble. Then about the alliance. Yi Tianyin had come here to form an alliance, not to stroll around. Chapter 1632. The heavenly god Luck was enraged by the Fecta domain ruler's abdication of responsibility. She didn't think that the Fecta domain ruler would be so irresponsible. However, after thinking about it, she could only accept it. The Fecta domain ruler had always been like this. He was always focused on research. All the other elders were like this as well. Many of the internal affairs were left to the other elders. To put it bluntly, they weren't very interested in power, and it could even be said that they couldn't be bothered to care about it. However, due to their cultivation base and reputation, they were able to sit in these positions. As such, this was a very common occurrence. If there were other elders around, the Fecta domain ruler would do the same. He directly threw this task to an elder at the side, and let them handle these trivial matters. The Fecta domain ruler has always been like this. "Let me sign an alliance with you." The heavenly god Luck was very exasperated. It looked like the Fecta domain ruler wouldn't say anything even if she became a guest elder or an elder. As long as she could manage the affairs here well, she could do whatever she wanted. All right. Yi Tianyin couldn't help but shake his head as he watched the Fecta domain ruler continue his research. No wonder this place was so prosperous. They had always strived for perfection, and were constantly researching all kinds of things. How could the Fecta domain not become stronger? They then signed an alliance agreement stating that the Fecta domain would not make a move unless it was absolutely necessary. They only did this because they didn't want to expose the Fecta domain. Yi Tianyin didn't think there was anything wrong with this. After all, they just had to sign an alliance agreement. At the very least, they wouldn't be enemies in the future. Instead, they would be close allies. After signing the agreement, the heavenly god Luck looked at him. "I have some matters to attend to here, so I can't go to your faction for now." "That's all right, we can talk about that later. There's no need to rush for now." Yi Tianyin smiled. "If there's nothing else, it's time for me to go." "Wait a minute." The heavenly god Luck took out a badge and handed it to him. "This is the special badge that will allow you to enter the Fecta domain. Without this badge, you won't be able to enter. Remember, don't lose it." This is a very serious matter. Don't worry, I won't lose it unless I die. Tianyan accepted the badge. This was the key to entering the Fecta domain, so there was no way he would lose it. This way, he wouldn't have to worry about taking a detour in the future, and he wouldn't have to go through the complicated passageways. Your luck is better than mine. How could you die? The heavenly god of luck's expression gradually became serious. I'll leave the rest to you. Actually, if it's possible, I really want to go with you. We'll talk about it when we have the chance in the future. Tianyan still refused to go with heavenly god luck. It was best for him to do things on his own. After leaving the Fecta divine realm, Tianyan immediately flew to the evil spirit race's distribution point. If he wanted to go to the evil spirit race's distribution point, he would first have to go to the 5th grade divine domain area. Actually, this was not difficult. There was no special barrier between the two, such as a special barrier or something that could not be passed through. From here, one would only need to fly for a relatively long time before they could enter the rank 5 god realm. His way back was also through the Temple of Luck, so he had to fly directly from the Myriad Worlds Celestial Realm to the Grade 5 Celestial Realm. Along the way, Tianyan began to study the Fecta Divine Fan on the Spirit Ship. This was the treasure of the previous Fecta ruler. Now, it was just a pile of scrap metal, and its former glory was nowhere to be seen. The Fecta Divine Fan is rumored to be able to predict the future. At the same time, it is extremely lethal. A wave of the fan can also create terrifying divine winds that can sweep through everything. Tianyan was very interested in this thing, and he immediately began to repair it. He opened up the fusion mode and immediately tossed the Fecta Divine Fan into it. Then he tossed in all the heavenly venerate spirit treasures. All of this was to repair the Fecta Divine Fan. He wanted to repair as much as he could. After the fusion, the Fecta Divine Fan began to repair bit by bit, but the speed was rather slow. This was all because the heavenly venerate spirit treasures he tossed in were simply too low grade. They were all lower-level heavenly venerate spirit treasures, and the most powerful ones were intermediate heavenly venerate spirit treasures. The effects would definitely not be very good. If he wanted the best effects, he would definitely toss in heavenly god spirit treasures. But where would he get heavenly god spirit treasures from? He had killed so many heavenly gods, but not a single one had dropped. The main thing was that they had yet to refine one, so it was extremely difficult to get one to drop. As a heavenly god, it was really embarrassing to be unable to refine heavenly god spirit treasures. But the truth was that it required too many materials. All in all, it actually meant one thing: poor. Hence, those who could refine heavenly god spirit treasures either had a perfect collection of materials, or were overflowing with wealth. In short, heavenly gods who saw heavenly god spirit treasures were definitely very powerful, and not easy to deal with. Although the grade was a little low, it was still repaired bit by bit. The Fecta Divine Fan quickly began to restore its original appearance. The original frame of the Divine Fan still had many broken parts. Now it was being repaired bit by bit, and the same was happening to the fan surface. It was being repaired rapidly, and its grade was also gradually increasing. Finally, when it was successfully restored to a lower-level heavenly god spirit treasure, its appearance was basically repaired, and it had some of its original effects. It was originally an upper-level heavenly god spirit treasure, but now it was only a lower-level heavenly god spirit treasure. Most of its functions definitely had not been repaired. Fortunately, it seemed that it had been repaired by almost half, and the overall effect was quite good. Almost all of the lower-level heavenly venerable spirit treasures and middle-level heavenly venerable spirit treasures have been used, and I've only barely recovered to a lower-level heavenly god spirit treasure. It's really difficult. Tianyan shook his head and smiled bitterly. If he continued to use it, he would really be poor. No wonder those heavenly gods couldn't refine it. The materials needed were too many. If he hadn't killed many heavenly venerables, he really wouldn't have been able to fill this gap. When he held the Fecta Divine Fan tightly, he felt a warm and jade-like feeling. It was clearly a fan, but it gave him the feeling that it was a piece of jade. He gently fanned it, and the divine seal on it began to flash. A ray of light flowed along his palm and toward his head. With a flash of light, he immediately saw images. Then he quickly stretched out his hand and put away the Fecta divine fan. Then, he flew out of the spirit ship and continued to fly forward. A moment later, he saw a spirit ship flying over. Upon closer inspection, it was a group of evil spirit race powerhouses. As expected, I met them. Chapter 1633. The legendary Ursi divine fan could predict in advance. Now, Etianyan could immediately sense it. He could predict about half an incense stick of time in advance. However, he could only deduce what he would encounter in half an incense stick of time, and he couldn't speculate what others would encounter. Unless the Ursi divine fan was given to them to use, they wouldn't be able to deduce it. This was already quite heaven-defying. It meant that when fighting with others, he could constantly deduce their attack methods. Wasn't that heaven-defying? The answer was indeed quite heaven-defying. Every time he attacked, he would have to predict it. After all, as Etianyan broke the other party's attack method, the other party would definitely change it immediately. This meant that predicting the situation in half an incense stick of time in advance would be ineffective. The future could be known, but under Etianyan's interference, it would immediately be changed. No matter what, this Ursi divine fan was truly a divine fan to Etianyan. It's a human powerhouse, swallow him. There were many evil spirit race powerhouses on the spirit ship. There were several Empyrean-level powerhouses, and one Empyrean-level powerhouse. They shuttled back and forth unscrupulously, and their activities became even more ordinary. This made Etianyan feel that something was about to happen. Their activities weren't that frequent before, but they had become more and more frequent recently. This meant that the battle between the god emperors was truly about to descend. Even if the evil spirits hadn't resurrected, they all began to move crazily. Either they were carrying out a rescue plan, or there was another extremely powerful existence on the level of evil spirits. Following that, this group of evil spirits quickly rushed over. Two of the evil spirit Empyreans rushed over and surrounded Etianyan. They opened their bloody mouths, wanting to suck Etianyan dry. Both of them were at the upper Empyrean level, so it was definitely more than enough to deal with Etianyan's middle Empyrean level. However, Etianyan smiled. When they attacked, he had already disappeared, causing them to pounce on empty air. What's going on? Where did he go? After they missed, they looked at each other in dismay. They didn't know what had happened. Such a big living person had disappeared in front of them just like that. The key was that they hadn't even sensed him before he disappeared. Just as they were confused, an evil spirit race rushed over from afar. Their gazes turned cold as they locked onto him. When he realized that it was an expert of the same race, the vigilance in his eyes quickly disappeared. I was chasing after a human just now. Did you guys find him? The evil spirit race that flew over anxiously asked. He is very strange, he often disappears, and even if we want to catch him, we won't be able to. We saw it just now. It suddenly disappeared. It's a bit like teleportation, but this kind of teleportation is very strange. We didn't sense anything at all. They shook their heads. Now that they had completely lost all clues, they didn't know how to pursue. Forget it, let's go back and ask the Lord. What about you? What mission are you on? Me? I completed my mission a long time ago. Originally, I wanted to go back and report, but who knew that I would see a human brat? He wanted to chase after me, but he slipped away right in front of my eyes. The upper Empyrean evil spirit shook his head. Since you've completed the mission, come with us. After all, you'll have to move out immediately after you return. Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit said. Right now, everyone is mainly carrying out this mission. It's the same for everyone, especially those with higher cultivation. Alright, I'll go with you to carry out the mission. The upper Empyrean evil spirit said. After the upper Empyrean evil spirit finished speaking, the corner of his mouth curled up into a strange smile. He was not the real evil spirit race but Etianyan. Etianyan did not kill them all. It was very easy to kill them, but it was meaningless. He wanted to know which area this group of evil spirit race wanted to go to and what mission they wanted to do. Thus, after attracting their attention, he quickly disappeared and pretended to be an evil spirit race that had rushed over to kill them, as a perfect disguise. Following them back to the spirit ship, the leader of the evil spirit race said, "Lord Ao Yuan, that human brat suddenly disappeared just now. We were completely unable to find his whereabouts. He must have used some sort of treasure to leave. This is a fellow race member who just happened to pass by, and said that he would carry out a mission with us." They were very respectful, and Tianyan also pretended to be very respectful. The evil spirit race was extremely strict about ranks, and it could even be said to be harsh. The lower ranks had to have absolute obedience to the higher ranks, so they had to be very respectful. Heavenly God Ao Yuan looked at them coldly and nodded. "Forget it. There are many cultivators like this who rely on treasures, so there's no need to care about them. Anyway, it won't be long before they all become our slaves." He clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes were filled with scarlet light as if everything was under his control. Tianyun's eyes flickered, but he did not say much. As they continued to fly, Tianyan asked around and soon found out what their mission was. Previously, he said that he had just completed the mission, and was preparing to return to the headquarters, which was a good cover. Before he returned, he naturally would not know what his current mission was. Their current mission was very simple, which was to set up a teleportation portal, which was set up in many areas. If they encountered any cultivators along the way, they would of course kill them. Setting up a teleportation portal. Tianyan immediately knew what they wanted to do. They were going to set up all kinds of teleportation portals, so that the evil spirit race could teleport over in one go and achieve the effect of a surprise attack. The area that they set up this time happened to be near the Heaven Cultivation God territory. Without a doubt, the Heaven Cultivation God territory was one of the areas that they wanted to overthrow after setting up the teleportation portals. Apart from that, he also learned that most of the evil spirit race had gone to the major areas to set up teleportation portals. The main areas were at the Heaven Cultivation God territory and Yuelong God territory. The other areas were also set up. It could be said that they had locked onto the entire 4th grade God territory, and they were probably going to surround and annihilate them. As for what their goal was, they did not know. All they knew was to set up the teleportation portals. The only one who knew the details was Heavenly God Ao Yuan. However, looking at Heavenly God Ao Yuan's expression, it was impossible for him to get any information out of him. If he went to ask, he would probably be slapped in the face and told to just carry out the mission. There was no need to talk so much nonsense. I hope they will go back after setting up the teleportation portals. Tianyan wanted to follow them back to the distribution point. It would undoubtedly be much easier if he followed them back. He did not even need to look for anything, and he would be able to find the hidden distribution point. The information given by the Fekta God territory was more general. It said that it was this area, but he really did not know the details. Chapter 1634. Tianyan followed them. Soon, they came to an area near the Heaven Cultivation God realm, and started setting up teleportation arrays in those barren areas. They first took out a black crystal and embedded it in the ground. Then this special black crystal began to seep into the planet. In a short while, the area became pitch black, and not a single blade of grass grew. This was not an awakening crystal, but a special energy used to set up the teleportation array. After spreading it, they quickly engraved the teleportation divine seal on it. It did not take long before a special teleportation array was easily engraved on it. On the surface, it looked like it had been polluted. However, no one would care about such a situation. Anyway, it would be pitch black at most. Who would have thought that it was a teleportation array? Alright, let's go to the next place. Heavenly deity Ao Yuan, who was watching from the side, nodded and continued to fly to other planets with his subordinates. Tianyan looked at this place silently. He moved his feet slightly between the spirit ships, and a special energy seeped deep into the ground and destroyed the teleportation array. He had been watching from the side as they engraved the teleportation array, so he immediately knew what the flaw was. A light touch was enough to destroy the teleportation array. He would not let these guys succeed. Therefore, he destroyed as many teleportation arrays as they set up. Everything was done very covertly, so they did not notice it at all. Originally, as long as one did not try to teleport these teleportation arrays, one would not know whether there was a problem or not. They were all on the spirit ships now, so they definitely did not know that the teleportation arrays had been destroyed. Then, they continued to fly to other areas and set up teleportation arrays one by one. Tianyan destroyed them one by one. If they knew that the teleportation arrays they set up were useless, they would definitely vomit blood. Lord Ao Yuan, there is a planet in front with many cultivators on it. Should we devour it? One of the heavenly venerable evil spirits asked. Isn't that obvious? Kill them all. This is one of the important areas. No matter who is on it, destroy them all. Heavenly deity Ao Yuan said sternly. No problem. Their eyes lit up. This time, they would be able to have a sumptuous meal again. On the planets in front of them were a bunch of itinerant cultivators. There were high and low cultivation bases, and the highest cultivation base was only a lower empyrean. This meant that what they were about to face was absolute suppression. The itinerant cultivators who stayed inside had no idea what would happen to them. They were all either cultivating or discussing something. Tianyan sat at the side and looked at them quietly, not saying a word. When they got close, their group of empyreans flew out, rapidly erupting with their strongest power. After releasing a powerful force, it formed a pitch-black barrier that enveloped the huge planet. What they needed was to devour all of them, and not let any fish slip through the net. On a planet, there were at least hundreds of millions of lives. If they were to be completely devoured, it would be really terrifying. However, they were not satisfied with this at all. On the contrary, they were somewhat displeased. Their cultivations are so low and their bloodlines are also very weak. They must not taste good. Isn't that for sure? It's about the same as what we swallowed before. The taste is really terrible, but it can still fill our teeth. Hee, don't be so demanding. After some time, there will be more delicious things to devour. That's right. There are many geniuses in those powerful forces. The taste will definitely be better. They all swallowed their saliva, thinking about being able to devour cultivators with relatively high cultivation bases and talent. Their imaginations ran wild. They weren't too interested in the hundreds of millions of lives in front of them, but it wasn't a problem to casually devour them. This was the difference between races. In their eyes, this was a pile of food. What's going on? At this time, the cultivators on the planet below all saw this strange scene. A terrifying black screen appeared, and a powerful devouring force sucked them up. They couldn't struggle at all. It was as if they were being lifted up. Besides constantly twisting their bodies, they couldn't do anything else. Some were immediately devoured after being sucked into the black fog. At the same time, they flew towards those empyrean evil spirits, preparing to be devoured. There were at least a dozen empyreans presiding over this place. It was too easy to deal with them. Even if there were rogue cultivator empyreans inside, facing the powerful bloodline power of the evil spirit race, they could only resist in vain. They couldn't be sucked up for the time being, but if the others were completely devoured, they wouldn't be able to escape either. Evil spirit race, it seems to be the evil spirit race. What's going on? The evil spirit race actually appeared here. Hurry up and run. Where are you going? This place has been sealed off and there are barriers everywhere. There's no way to escape. Their faces were filled with fear. They couldn't escape even if they wanted to. They could only be sucked up bit by bit. Some of them forcefully fixed themselves to the ground, but very quickly, even the houses were sucked up. These cultivators were unable to escape the fate of being sucked up. This group of idiots, they still think they can break free and escape? How laughable. They mocked the struggling rogue cultivators, but the more they saw the struggling rogue cultivators, the happier they felt. They liked to see these rogue cultivators constantly struggling. Only by looking at their expressions of despair would they feel good about devouring them. Buzz. At this moment, a cold light flashed over. The smiles of this group of empyreans stiffened, and suddenly, they were cut into several pieces. In the blink of an eye, several Empyreans were beheaded, their heads exploding with a single spear strike. After killing several Empyreans in a row, the effect of their great formation was immediately weakened by half. Those who were originally sucked up now all fell back to the ground. This was not the end. A cold light was getting faster and faster, crazily harvesting the lives of these evil spirit heavenly venerables. They were unable to stop it at all. They only saw a cold light, and then they lost consciousness forever. In less than a moment, the great formation almost collapsed. The many rogue cultivators below could only see a cold light flickering. What's going on? Did that ray of cold light save us? They stared blankly at the cold light. Accompanying this cold light was a silver moon in the air, and in the end, it froze in the air. At this moment, they finally saw this person's appearance clearly. It was actually a handsome young human. He saved us, he saved us. Chapter 1635. Tianyun crazily harvested the lives of many heavenly venerate evil spirits. To him, as long as it was in existence of the same level, it could be described as a harvest. No one could stop his attack. As long as it was a heavenly venerate, whether it was an upper-level heavenly venerate or a super upper-level heavenly venerate, it did not matter at all. Even if it was a super heavenly venerate or a super heavenly venerate, they were still suppressed by him. After all, under the powerful crazy damage mode and the suppression of the title, all heavenly venerates could only kneel in front of him. In the blink of an eye, 5 or 6 heavenly venerate evil spirits were killed. The speed was so shocking that the heavenly venerate evil spirits could not see it at all. After a whistling sound, they all dodged, not daring to face it head-on. Tianyun would definitely not let them succeed. With so many lives, he could not just watch as they were harvested. Although he wanted to go back with them, there was no need to watch as countless lives were killed in front of him. He only needed to kill most of them and let some of them escape, including his evil spirit puppets. Ant-human, hand over your life. Heavenly deity Ao Yuan roared. 10 arms spread out behind his back, and a pair of wings appeared on his back. He directly used the strongest power of his awakening and attacked Tianyun. He did not want to see his subordinates die one by one. If they all died, then his mission would fail, and he would never allow it to fail. Therefore, he directly used the power of his awakening, wanting to quickly kill Tianyun. It seems that heavenly gods can all awaken with the awakening crystal? Tianyun looked at heavenly deity Ao Yuan. He had also taken out the awakening crystal to awaken and directly used the strongest power. Originally, he was only a low-level heavenly god, but after the awakening, his combat power skyrocketed, and he was almost at the level of a middle-level heavenly god. Such powerful power made the hearts of the many itinerant cultivators below tense up. This evil spirit race is so strong, I hope he doesn't lose. If he loses, we are finished. Yes, don't lose. If he wins, I am willing to work like a slave for him. All the itinerant cultivators below were praying. They did not want to die in the hands of the evil spirit race. That would be too useless. However, there was a huge difference in their strength, so they could only choose to accept their fate. Now that a savior had appeared, how could they not be excited? Just when they thought that Tianyun would be in for a tough fight, the 5 giant dragons swooped in and swallowed Tianyun whole. They were all dumbfounded. None of them knew what had happened. Was Ao Yuan killed just like that? Not only had he insta-killed heavenly god Ao Yuan, but his remaining energy also continued to bombard the other evil spirit tribe cultivators, turning them into dust one by one. Dead. They were all dumbfounded. Such a powerful Empyrean deity, who had awakened his own power, was defeated by Tianyun in one move? Not to mention them, even the other evil spirit race couldn't help but feel terrified. Their boss had been killed in an instant. Those with weaker cultivations were naturally cannon fodder. Run. The rest of the Empyreans did not say a word and turned to flee. Even the evil spirit puppets that pretended to attack also fled with them. Tianyun definitely wouldn't let them all escape, so he immediately chased after them and killed all the escaping evil spirit heavenly venerables one by one. Only the 2 evil spirit heavenly venerables did not continue to chase after them. One of them was naturally the evil spirit puppet, and the other was the real evil spirit heavenly venerables. Without any difficulty, these powerhouses were ruthlessly killed, which made Tianyan feel extremely carefree. He had earned so much experience that he was in a good mood. However, his mood became even better when he thought that he was about to stroll around the evil spirit race's headquarters. Upper heavenly venerables, I'm coming. Tianyan smiled and flew towards the direction of the evil spirit puppet. He didn't stay here any longer. Everything happened suddenly, and it also happened suddenly. Many of the cultivators below were dumbfounded as they looked at the situation above. That hero left just like that? That's right, we haven't thanked him for saving us. But it's fine, I've already remembered his appearance. When I see him in the future, I'll be able to repay him. One of them had a recording crystal in his hand. There was a battle scene on it, and Tianyan's appearance was clearly recorded. It was difficult not to see it. You even recorded it? Give me a copy, I'll give you money. I want one too. That way of fighting was really too straightforward. Maybe if I took a few more glances, I might even be able to break through. I want one too. One by one, they rushed over, wanting to copy the recording crystal. Not only did they want to remember their savior, they also wanted to see the shocking battle just now. To spread the news of Tianyan's situation so crazily, Tianyan did not expect this. At the same time, the evil spirit puppet and one of the evil spirit heavenly venerables continued to escape. They quickly hid in one of the planets. Too terrifying. I've never seen such a powerful human race before. Haven't humans always been the lowest level of existence? How did they cultivate such powerful strength? This evil spirit heavenly venerables was panting. At the same time, he was constantly paying attention to the situation outside the planet, afraid that Tianyan would catch up. I'm not sure about that. It's really too strong. Looks like we can only go back and report this matter. The evil spirit puppet also pretended to be panting by the side. There were quite a few injuries on its body. In order to be more realistic, it definitely had to suffer some injuries. Right. We can only go back and report this matter. But we have to see the situation clearly now. If we're discovered, we won't be able to live either. This evil spirit heavenly venerables was really afraid. He squatted here and kept hiding. Tianyan could only hide by the side. Little did he know that Tianyan had already entered the evil spirit puppet's body long ago. Previously, he entered the void through the power of the void and quietly returned. After hiding for a period of time, it was roughly several weeks before this evil spirit heavenly venerables dared to show their heads. Tianyan, who is next to him, thinks that he is too cautious. If the other party really chased over, they would be finished without needing to hide for so long. The longer they hid here, the more dangerous it would be. He shouldn't be able to catch up. Let's leave right now. And let's go. The evil spirit heavenly venerables immediately brought Tianyan and flew away from here. After leaving far away, he said with a smile, "Looks like the two of us are really lucky, or perhaps our escaping skills are better, otherwise we would really be dead for sure." Yeah, really lucky. Tianyan sneered at the side. If he did not let him go, would this guy still be alive? Chapter 1636. Tianyan followed this Empyrean evil spirit and flew back. Along the way, this Empyrean evil spirit was sneaky and didn't dare to fly directly. When they met other cultivators, they immediately brought Tianyan to hide. It was obvious that they were afraid. He didn't expect this Empyrean evil spirit to be so timid. His previous arrogance was completely gone, and turned into a look of fear. We have to be careful. We can't continue to be discovered. Otherwise, we won't be able to bring back what happened here. Empyrean evil spirit seemed to feel Tianyan's gaze, and felt embarrassed. However, he still covered up for himself so that he wouldn't be so embarrassed. That's right, we still have to be careful. Tianyan could only nod in agreement. No matter what the other party thought or did, he couldn't do anything about it. He could only let it do whatever it wanted. In any case, as long as he could bring him to the evil spirit race branch, there wouldn't be any problems. In fact, As long as he was by his side, no matter who came, he could escape with Empyrean evil spirit. No matter what, he had to escape with him. Otherwise, how could he enter the evil spirit race branch so easily? He followed this Empyrean evil spirit and flew all the way. When they returned to a safer area, they began to speed back. After rushing for several weeks, they finally arrived at that area. We're finally back. Without a high-grade spirit ship, the speed of returning is too slow. Empyrean evil spirit shook his head. If they just relied on flying, their speed was really slow. Tianyan muttered in his heart. If he hadn't been hiding, he would have returned here long ago. It's good that we can return safely. Tianyan said from the side. Right. This way, we can return and report the situation over there. Empyrean evil spirit nodded and pointed ahead. We're finally back. Let's hurry over. Tianyan looked ahead. There was nothing in front of him except for a few scattered planets. Without a doubt, it was something similar to a transmission array. It seemed that the evil spirit race was more cautious now and wouldn't show themselves easily. They weren't as arrogant as Fan Yu's side, or as arrogant as the outer divine regions. They were all hiding here and there, but recently, their movements had become more frequent. Shortly after, they landed on one of the planets. There was also a pitch-black land here, and there was no doubt that the black crystal was buried underneath. Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit brought him to that area, and began to transfer energy to the ground beneath his feet. A moment later, black light began to emit from below, enveloping them within. Tianyan could clearly feel that this was a special energy, which was the evil spirit race's unique dark spirit force. After infiltrating the place, it dragged them in. If it wasn't for the evil spirit race, there was no way to use this transmission array, so it was absolutely safe. However, they didn't know that there were things like evil spirit puppets, which could be said to be impossible to guard against. After the teleportation, Tianyan felt that he had entered a strange space. It was pitch black all around, and there was nothing at all. Fortunately, he could still see Empyrean Evil Spirit, which meant that there was no problem. Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit raised his foot and walked forward. Tianyan followed him out, and after passing through a layer of black membrane, he officially arrived at the outside space. The first thing that entered his eyes was the pitch black and disgusting space. The surroundings were still pitch black, and the sky seemed to be filled with an oily substance that filled the entire sky. Whether it was the sky or the ground, they were all filled with a thick layer of material, making them look rather disgusting. There was no sunlight here, nor was there any fresh air. The only thing he could smell was a disgusting smell that floated in the air. Right in front of him were countless strange-looking buildings. There were quite a few evil spirit races living here. Other than that, he didn't see any other races, only the evil spirit race was here. There really are a lot of evil spirit races. Tianyan swept his gaze across the area. There were many evil spirit races living here, and their cultivations were not low. At a glance, the lowest cultivation level was at the Earth Monarch level, and the highest was at the Sky Sovereign level. As for the Empyrean God level, they probably lived inside. At the very least, there was a strange tower in the distance, which should be where the Heavenly God level evil spirit race lived. The Heavenly God level evil spirit race was the highest level of existence, so they would naturally live in different areas. Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit brought Tianyan directly to the center of the tower. The guards at the entrance did not stop them. As an Empyrean level evil spirit race, their status was still relatively high, so it was naturally impossible for them to stop them. When they reached the third floor, Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit's body began to tremble, and his eyes were filled with fear. Preparations are almost here. I wonder if Lord Gokai will punish us. Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit's voice trembled. Gokai. Tianyan's gaze turned cold. He didn't expect to meet the Heavenly God of Luck so quickly. The Heavenly God that he was chasing after had been found so quickly. It was really easy. Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit brought Tianyan to the Great Hall, and said nervously to the guards, "Help me inform Lord Gokai that we have something important to discuss with him." Wait a moment. The guards nodded and immediately went in to report. After a while they came out and said, "You may enter." They followed the two of them in. As soon as they entered, they saw Gokai sitting on the throne at the front with a frown. There were also several heavenly venerates kneeling in front of him. It was unknown what they were reporting, but it made Gokai rather unhappy. Apart from that, there were also several heavenly venerates at the side who were half crippled. They were lying limply on the ground with pitch-black blood flowing all over. They weren't dead, but they looked a little worse for wear. No wonder they were so afraid of Gokai. With such a violent personality, coupled with the fact that they had failed their mission, how could they not be punished? Re-reporting to Lord Gokai, our mission failed. Lord Ao Yuan is also dead. After they entered, they also knelt down together. With the difference in levels, they definitely had to kneel to talk. Heavenly Lord Evil Spirit reported everything in detail. At the same time, he kept raising his head to observe Gokai's expression. That's the gist of it. I don't know where that human came from, but he is really too strong. I have never seen such a strong human before. Trash! Empyrean God Gokai's palm slapped out. The power of the void sent the evil spirit puppet and Empyrean evil spirit flying away. Just like the other Empyreans that had been sent flying away. Their bodies were torn apart by this palm, unable to resist at all. The evil spirit puppet was almost smashed in half. Fortunately, its physique was shockingly strong. Otherwise, it would really have been smashed in half. One had to know that its body still had the evil spirit's pearl. Of course, even if it was smashed in half, it would not expose the evil spirit's pearl. The evil spirit's pearl was hidden in its head. Unless its head was smashed, it would be fine. Chapter 1637. It was not unexpected that Gokai had such a fiery temper. It should be said that the evil spirit tribe was like this. They were extremely ruthless when dealing with their subordinates. Beating them up was considered letting them off lightly. If it were not for the fact that they still had value to be used, Gokai would have smacked them to death long ago. Your physique is not bad. Are you new? Gokai looked at Yi Tianyun's side. The other heavenly venerables had all been smacked to death by him. Only Yi Tianyun's side suffered some superficial injuries at most. Yes, Lord. Yi Tianyun stood up with difficulty. His body had been smacked hard, and his situation was not much better, especially when he had no defense at all. If he had defended himself, the situation would have been much better. At least he would not have been in such a sorry state. However, if he had defended himself, he would have died even more miserably. The other heavenly venerables had all suffered this palm directly. Whoever blocked one palm strike would receive 10 more palm strikes. Therefore, it was better for them to be hit obediently. No one dared to resist at all. You do have some potential. Heavenly God Gokai said coldly. It's just that you'll be severely punished for failing this mission. Lord Gokai, we failed the mission. That was something that could not be helped. A human who came out of nowhere is really powerful. Even Lord Ao Yuan was killed. Heavenly Venerate Evil Spirit also got up, and his injuries began to recover rapidly. He then knelt in front of Gokai. A mission failure is a failure, no matter the reason. Gokai said coldly. Heavenly Venerate Evil Spirit felt extremely wronged. How could they deal with such a powerful opponent? Our mission is not considered a failure. We have set up many teleportation arrays. There are only 1 or 2 areas that have not been resolved. That human powerhouse is really powerful. His overall strength is at least at the level of a middle-level heavenly deity. Otherwise, heavenly deity Ao Yuan would not have been killed instantly when he awakened. As he spoke, he directly displayed the battle situation at that time. In fact, he had released the memories in his mind and formed a picture for them to see. After Gokai and the others saw it, their expressions became solemn. Yi Tianyun's fighting posture was presented in front of their eyes. After reading it, Gokai said in a low voice, I didn't expect it to be him. How could his power be so strong? My lord, you know of his existence? Empyrean Evil Spirit was puzzled. He didn't know anything about this. He's on our clan's blacklist, and it's an absolute blacklist at that. He's ranked in the top 5 on our list of targets to kill. I didn't expect him to appear here. How strange. Gokai replied in a solemn voice. Not only has he destroyed Fan Yu's forces, but he's also raised the forces of the other divine realms to the ground, making it impossible for the puppet forces to rise. Recently, he's even forced Heavenly God Sky Cloud into retreat, thereby foiling his plans. Gokai had thought it was some human, but he didn't expect it to be such a blacklisted existence. Tianyan, who was at the side, almost laughed out loud. He didn't think that he would be so famous and have such a deep influence in this aspect. It was even more hilarious that he was ranked in the top 5 on the blacklist. However, this made him even more curious. He was only ranked in the top 5, so he was very curious about who the others were. Strange, we didn't receive this kind of information. Empyrean Evil Spirit smiled bitterly. This is information we received recently, and we were just about to announce it. It's normal that you don't know about it. Gokai said in a low voice. Since you encountered him, it's normal that you were all wiped out. However, I didn't expect him to let you two go. This is strange. Gokai looked back and forth between the two of them, trying to figure out something from them. He went to chase after someone else, and we ran quite fast. It should be said that our concealment skills are quite good, so we managed to escape. Actually, the most important thing was that we wanted to come back and report this matter. Empyrean Evil Spirit even found a few excuses for himself. He was a coward who was afraid of death, and he even said that he wanted to come back and report this matter. Gokai waved his hand and said indifferently, "Alright, there's no need to say anymore. I won't pursue this matter this time. You guys go and have a good rest and prepare for the next mission." Yes, Your Excellency." This Empyrean Evil Spirit was like he was granted amnesty. After quickly getting up and bowing, he turned around and left. Tianyan followed and quickly left together, not staying here for too long. Although Gokai was here, it was not easy to move around. It was too conspicuous here. If there was any rustle of grass in the wind, it would be extremely easy to be discovered. Hence, everything had to be prepared in order to do things properly. After going out, this Empyrean Evil Spirit gritted his teeth and said, "He even made us go down and rest. If not for this palm of his, would we be injured? It's simply a little rest, and we'll be able to proceed with the next mission. Now it's great, we really have to take a good rest." He had just come out and immediately started complaining. "It's fine, let's find a place to rest," Tianyan suggested by the side. "Alright, rest well first before talking. I have to say, we're really lucky. I didn't expect that the other party is even a top 5 existence on the blacklist. I reckon that our escaping skills are really pretty good," this Empyrean Evil Spirit said with a smile. Top 5 on the blacklist, who else is ahead of it? Tianyan asked. "You don't know?" Empyrean Evil Spirit said doubtfully. "This I've always been in closed seclusion and don't know much about the outside world." Tianyan smiled. Empyrean Evil Spirit did not suspect anything and directly explained. "If it were before, the top 4 are respectively Yuelong Region Lord, Fecta Region Lord, Cloud Piercing Region Lord, and Sword Edge Region Lord. They are all extremely troublesome existences. Basically, they all wish that they could get rid of immediately. But it's because they're too hard to get rid of. That's why they became blacklisted. Speaking of which, that guy can still be 5th. His level looks like he's only an Empyrean, but when he erupts, even celestial deities are insta-killed. Truly terrifying. However, we still escaped from that kid's hands. It doesn't feel like much either." Tianyan was silent by the side. Very soon, Empyrean Evil Spirit brought Tianyan to one of the close seclusion chambers. "Let's rest here. Next time, we'll set off together to do a mission." This Empyrean Evil Spirit did not think too much and brought Tianyan to this secret chamber. After closing, this Empyrean Evil Spirit was just about to meditate when a bright light flickered, and a terrifying force nailed him to the ground. "Is that so? Don't feel like I'm much?" Tianyan's face appeared in front of him. By the time he reacted, everything was already too late. You. This Empyrean Evil Spirit turned his head to look at the Evil Spirit puppet at the side, and then looked at Tianyan. It seemed like he already knew what was going on. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.